And we are live. Welcome everybody to the 65th episode of Coaster Time, hosted by me, Carrick Gilgan. And today, as you can tell from the title, we are doing a special stream, taking a bit of a break from the coasters to highlight dark rides, which are some of my personal favorite rides in the entire theme park industry. And we're going to be doing that by looking at some of my all-time favorite dark rides. I'm actually going to be doing a top 25 countdown that'll be kind of split up in a way that you'll see in a bit. And we're also going to do some segments that we normally would do with coasters, such as Guess the Coaster, along with a coaster quiz, and do that with dark rides. So we're also going to have a dark ride quiz as well. Some other segments in there. You can check out the itinerary in the description for a full gist of what's going on there. And that's going to be the plan today for today's stream. So I also am going to be doing a few other things in the stream as well. I'm wanting to kind of experiment with some background music, so I'm going to be putting that in once we get more people in here, so that way I can get feedback in terms of where the audio levels are at. So probably in the next few minutes, once the notifications get out here, we will roll with that. So that'll be the plan there. But first order of business here is going to just be some updates. So I haven't done a bingo card status update in quite a while here on YouTube. So the plan is going to be to do that just right about now. And then I've also done some changes with the coaster credits that I count as well. So we'll go through that right here. So first things first, here is the bingo card. So last time we looked at it, it looked like this. We had 2 slots filled with the Magic Mountain coaster, the new Vekoma being unveiled, and the Hala Madrid POV. There was one that came out, so we had those down. But now we have an additional slot that is filled, and that's going to be taken up by the Cosmic Rewind news. It obviously got removed from Virtual Queue last month, so that is going to be added to the bingo card. So that is, like I said, pretty small update, but it is an update nonetheless, so figured I would put that here. And next we'll move on to a credit count update. So just in terms of counting coasters, obviously I keep my own count. I've decided to retroactively add both sides of every dueling credit I have ridden. So I had ridden 201 coasters before I made this change. My criteria for doing coasters is basically if a coaster had 2 sides, I would pretty much only count both sides as individual credits if each side was different enough. Like Matterhorn bobsleds, for example, both sides have very different layouts, so that was one of those ones that I considered. But rides like Superman Escape from Krypton, where they have literally the exact same track layout side by side, I didn't include, but now that's in. And then same thing with some other ones such as Racer, Stampede, and Space Mountain. Now I have, since I've ridden both sides of each, I decided to retroactively make those 2 separate credits. I'm going to consider my milestone credits as the same even with this new criteria, because when I did those milestones, that was just the way I was counting credits. I'm not going to change them, with my 100th being Mystic Timbers and 200th being Tron Light Cycle Run. But just for fun, I added like what they would have been if I did decide to change them due to the new way I'm counting credits. And you would end up with Sidewinder Safari at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, which is the Wild Mouse, and then my 200th would have been Seven Dwarfs Mine Train Magic Kingdom. So obviously a lot less substantial of coasters. That would have been my milestones. But just wanted to go through that. It seems to be that notifications are coming out really slowly. So, and Charged on PC in the chat, hello. You say that your 100th coaster was Beast as well. All right. That's, I actually didn't know that. That's pretty cool. But your 100th was Beast. That is pretty neat. So that's really cool. And then I see DJ in the chat. Hello. All right. It looks like notifications are starting to get out a little bit. Sometimes they take a little while. But yeah, 100th, especially because you got to do Beast that night for your first ride, that's pretty incredible. So Um, yeah, that obviously is pretty neat. But I guess I can put the credit count back here on just for anyone who came in recently. I kind of changed the way I'm counting credits. Mentioned that specifically doing coasters, I'm now adding both sides of the credit. If I've done both of them, I didn't previously do that. It's a retroactive decision. Made it a few weeks ago because there's just more and more rides that are kind of in a gray area in terms of what I had previously made my criteria, which was if each side was different. Like you have the upcoming Stardust Racers, which is mostly the same layout, but the signature inversions are different, and there's like a few other differences, and there's some other ones. So it's just going to be pretty complicated to make judgments on those. So just decided that this was the best route to go. So yeah, this is a lot less, I think, controversial way of counting. I just think it makes it easier, as you mentioned. So, like I said, retroactive. So, milestone, and yeah, there's some weird ones. Like you have Racer at Kennywood where, it's a Mobius loop. So it, obviously the train itself travels through both sides, but you have to, you don't get to experience both sides in one ride. So I would still consider that as two separate credits under the new criteria. But it is interesting just to kind of see what different considerations there's going to be. There's some other weird ones too, like you have the steeplechase coaster at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which has, I think, like 3 sides. So there's certainly some weird ones. There's some other potential like coaster credit stuff that I still have in place that obviously is up for interpretation. I still don't consider like powered coasters as in my credit count. And then like and Big Timber log ride at Enchanted Forest, I just see that as a log flume. I don't count that as an actual coaster. You have Racers too. Yeah, it's just I never considered it as half a credit. I just was like, well, if you do either side or even both sides, it's just one. But I think it's easier. But yeah, so I know there's some people that do half credits. I that would drive me nuts. So definitely not going that route. Just like I said, counting each side as one seems to be easiest. And so I've decided to make that change all these years later. There are certain dueling coasters where I've only ridden one side though. So like Lightning Racer, I only have one of the sides. Same with Gemini, and then unfortunately Colossus at Magic Mountain, I only have the what I believe it was the left side of it, which is unfortunate because that's defunct. But at least I was able to ride one of the sides. So yeah, we do have that. And you also only have one with Lightning Racer as well. Yeah, so it also is going to make things interesting in terms of trying to go to parks and basically now forcing myself to ride both sides if I have time of every coaster that has a dueling side. So yeah, I've never ridden the Kings Island, or not the Kings Island, sorry, the Kings Dominion Racer. I've ridden the Kings Island one, and I enjoy it. So you know, it's nice. I do have both the Space Mountain sides. Honestly, from a ride experience standpoint, I didn't really think one was significantly better than the other or anything. I mean, the layouts are basically the same except mirrored, and one of them has like a slightly longer like brake run section, I believe. But yeah, obviously that would be another one that you could consider as having 2 credits. And then Racer, the funny thing is on Racer and Stampede, I actually do prefer, I think it's the blue side on the, I think blue side on both of them actually is the one I prefer between the two. So, on both coasters. So, they seem to both be running better. But anyways, let's see here. So I was initially next going to go into the dark ride quiz, but Either notifications are slow or maybe it's a busy night. So I might actually kind of swap that around in terms of doing this. Let's see, in terms of what I can kind of shift around here in order to kind of make things work. I guess I can just kind of do like a Q&A session for the time being. We'll see if some more people get in. If not, I can kind of shift around a few things for the stream. But yeah, let's just do an impromptu Q&A / buy or sell. This can obviously be about news or anything in general. We'll do that, and then we'll move forward from there. So that'll be the plan. So first Q&A, buy or sell, and then we'll move on from there, as I said. Yeah, blue side, it just seemed to be running better, and I wrote it right after the I think the first batch of the Gravity Group retrack, or one of the earlier batches. And it was funny because the first half ran like a dream, and the second half was not as good. But and it was like that on both sides, but the blue side definitely seemed to be running better. So I as I mentioned, so good to hear that it was also in your experience. I'm not an ACE member currently. Actually, I haven't been. I haven't really been in much coaster clubs, but you know, in the future, it could be considered because I've heard great things for all the events and everything there. So it's just I haven't done that yet. So, but definitely could be in consideration for the future because I've heard really good things there. So yeah, that's Ace. Yeah, they also have the magazine too, which I've heard people like, so that's obviously nice. And you're going to the spring conference, that's good. You've only been to one in real life event. I only had the only Coaster Club membership I ever had was for a Coaster Crew, and it was to basically a lot of it hinged on going to Hollywood Nights, pretty much. So now we're getting Civilian Satellite in the chat. Jackson was in the magazine. That's cool. That's nice to see. Shout out Jackson. And let's see. Kings Dominion, Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Is that where the conference is at this year? That should be a good time. Yeah, my location is yeah. I mean, I'm in California, but in the Central Valley. So that does not help. I mean, I do have some people saw in the stories, but I do have a new car now, so that'll hopefully help with this capability of travel. So that's definitely nice. But no, that's a good point. My location is not great for the value of a coaster club. That is definitely accurate. And let's see what else. The Civilian Satellite in the chat. Like I said, we're just doing Q&A and buy or sell. Was hoping to get some more people in here before we do the quiz. I have a whopping 3 coasters nearby. And it's about to shrink if Playland Fresno actually closes at the end of this month. So we'll keep an eye on that. That park has faced numerous perils over a long period of time, honestly. So we'll see if this is truly the end. I wouldn't be entirely surprised. There's actually some people are surprised it struggles as much. I just think there's a few different things going against it. It's not in the best area, specifically because it's in this like kind of area where you also have the zoo and another park that I think is owned by the same people called Storyland. That's more like fairy tale theme that seems to be more popular. It gets more of the school field trips, and Playland's kind of an afterthought. It's next to two attractions that just get way more traffic than it does, and it's just kind of left as the third wheel. So that certainly does not help. Ace did have an event, I believe, at Playland Fresno kind of recently. Don't know when it was, but I did see that they were doing one. I did not go there, but I know that one happened. Good timing, I suppose. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Playland Fresno in the next, I guess, several weeks here. Yeah, Magic Mountain's not too far away. I have the NorCal parks, so that's good. So, and then the other coasters, for those wondering that are near me, yeah, I have Blackbeard's. That's an FEC that seems to be doing pretty good. And it also has my favorite local coaster. And then technically there's Kiwani's Kittyland, which is like I think it's like might be in Merced or something. It's a decent ways away from me. I've actually never been to that park or ridden that credit. I've been told that you basically have to be a child to ride that credit, and or you have to give a really nice donation in order to do it. I don't know what exactly that donation cost is, because that's a city-owned park. So I have never ridden that credit, never even been to that park, so I can't comment on that one. Let's see. Yeah, Rotary Club owns, I believe, the two parks. I believe they operate Storyland, but they had Hellman Sons operating Playland, which is now obviously they're pulling out of it. So yeah, it's a Go Gator, so like it's pretty small. I've never even ridden one of those, so looks like that is not changing even with one not too far away from me. Okay, so just kind of looking through in terms of Q&A. I'll field a few more questions. Think probably tonight's a busy night. Also didn't help that in terms of like sending out the notifications. I guess I tested some different things. I've been doing it via post in terms of the countdown instead of the stories. So that might be a change that that didn't make that much sense in terms of like the Instagram promotion. Also, I forgot to do it earlier and I only sent it out an hour ago, so that probably doesn't help in terms of that, but some good things to know. But I think I'll do Q&A for a little bit, and then I'll probably honestly roll into like kind of the countdowns and like kind of talking about some rides that I've ridden. And then maybe later we can do some of the games. That might be the best way to go here in terms of doing that. Was I there last year? I did go to, let's see. Yeah, Playland I went to in 2023, so not last year. Oh wait, you were probably asking Civilian Satellite now that I'm looking at it, but in terms of the ACE Spring Conference. But I'll just mention the last time I visited my two local parks was 2023 for actually both Blackbeards and Playland Fresno. I went to Playland's reopening in 2023, and I went to Blackbeard's twice, one for an employee party and the other to get the credit because I had never gotten it. So I actually didn't have either credit till a few years ago, surprisingly enough. Buy or sell, Raptora becomes more highly regarded than Thunderbird. I'm going to sell that. I think the layout for Thunderbird looks a decent bit better than Raptora, just in terms of the selection of inversions. Raptora does have the theming. I don't know how detailed the queue is, but obviously that launch sequence is kind of cool. But it also lacks a near miss, which is kind of goofy. In terms of the inversions, I always get confused when you build a wing coaster and you don't even put in a near miss. That just seems like kind of a missed opportunity. But I mean, like I said, layout's not as good. Lack of a near miss. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's actually better than I'm expecting. I still think it'll be solid, but I don't think it's going to beat Thunderbird, which a lot of enthusiasts say is the best wing coaster. So I'm definitely going to sell that. But if I'm proven wrong, then that's great. I still think it'll be a great addition for the park, but it's just kind of a difficult task, I think, to beat out Thunderbird for a lot of enthusiasts. And honestly, I would say I would be surprised if I preferred it to Thunderbird. So there you go. Let's see. You were not some. Oh, this was about this was about the Ace conference. Oh yeah, because Blackbeard's so weird thing. If you go to Fresno, and then also I don't know if this is related to the policy or just the way the seatbelt works. But yeah, the 2 Fresno credits, for some reason, you have to have a second person with you. It doesn't have to be a child. You just have to have a second person. Both of the coasters have this really weird kind of thing, but in order to ride, you have to have a second person with you. At least that's my understanding. That was how it was in my experience. So, kind of interesting policies there, but yeah, that's something that is worth noting. Let's see. I think showing that we have some more people in here, but I'm not seeing more interaction in chat, but I'll field a few more and then we'll go into some of the rankings, I suppose. So that'll be what we do. Let's see. You already, Dark Coaster's effects were not running perfectly in your last visit. I haven't heard, honestly, hardly much at all on that ride, considering it's relatively new. It seems to just have been kind of overshadowed by a lot of other things. But it seems like a solid coaster. I mean, it's pretty compact too, which is nice, having done Arctic Rescue. Hopefully, it being more of a compact straddle coaster is able to help it. But yeah, Dark Coaster, definitely kind of a forgotten project nowadays, it feels like. Let's see, it's not really worth riding after rope drop because of the wait time. And yeah, I think that Quantum Accelerator looks pretty darn good in terms of their straddle coaster. I think that's actually going to be a really nice addition for that park. I think it's definitely a very slept-on coaster. I think that'll be a very good ride for that park. It may not be what people wanted to go in the old Goliath plot of land, but I think it's going to make for a very fun ride. So looking forward to eventually getting to that park and then being able to see what that coaster does for their lineup, because I think it'll be a very good, like, family thrill kind of coaster. So which is something that I think is very much needed at that park, just kind of from looking at their lineup. Alrighty, so guess we'll move on to I'll shift around some things, like I said. Let's go into the worst dark ride I've ridden. So I'm going to obviously be talking about some of the best dark rides I've ridden in this stream, since we're highlighting dark rides here. But that doesn't come without talking about the worst one, I will say. So we'll be doing that. And just to get started with this, I'll kind of leave up this banner here just to build up some suspense towards what it is. Actually, there's one question that came in, so I'll answer that real quick before we get into the rant with this dramatic screen. What's the first park that I think I'll take my new wheels to? That is a good question. I think there's a very strong chance it's probably gonna be one of three of either Magic Mountain, Universal Studios Hollywood, or Knott's Berry Farm. Magic Mountain's actually been since 2023 since I've been to, so it'd be great to go back. Knott's Berry Farm, I haven't been since 2021. I really want to get a front row ride on Accelerator, so that's definitely on the to-do list for this year. And Universal Studios Hollywood, it would be nice to do just so I could do the Super Nintendo World over there. I haven't been in since pre-pandemic, and so there's a lot I need to do over there. And also just so I'm hopefully visiting Epic Universe later this year, so if I can ride the Mario Kart attraction and experience Super Nintendo World and do some more of the interactive stuff before I go to Epic Universe, where I won't likely have as much time, that'll definitely be a nice thing to do. But if that comes afterwards, then that's fine also, but it's got to be probably one of those three. I'd be surprised if it was something else. So there you go. But anyways, I forgot about Pandemonium, but that's also another good ride in that kind of thrill level, so that's a good shout out. Anyways, sorry, going back to the dark ride rant. So gonna talk about the worst dark ride here. Like I said, talking about the best, so we'll talk about the worst here. Now I'll just say straight off the bat, this is the worst dark ride I've personally experienced. There are definitely worse ones out there, but I just got to talk about this one because it is really bad. And if anything, the takeaway is, if you're at this park or at this resort and you have little time, this is definitely something you can skip out on, or you can do, and you should definitely prioritize some of the other highlight rides within the resort. But this attraction, it is themed to cars and racing, and it's not even one of those rides that if it were in better condition, it could save it. It's not. It's just really just poorly executed in general. This is a screen-based attraction with terrible, unconvincing CG. And this is one of the few dark rides specifically that at the end of the ride, there was an audible disappointment from a lot of other guests, including an older man who looked like a disappointed child going off the ride. Definitely one of the more memorable moments of any attraction I've ever done. And so we're getting some people who have some guesses as to what this ride is. Is it Fast and Furious? Is it a family dark ride here? Emphasis on the family. You see, that's what I wanted you to believe, but it's actually not. It is Racing Legends at Ferrari Land. Hope I fooled you there. That was my hope of the build-up. Fast and Furious Supercharged is not great, but there are actually some good elements of that ride. This one is just, I have like pretty much about nothing good to say about this. So this is of course at the Portaventura Resort in Spain. Also, spoiler warning if you care. I'm just gonna say straight up, this ride is not worth it. If you want to ride it while you're there and you have the time, great, but let's talk about this ride. Oh, okay, so also dark ride, I should mention this, I meant to mention this in the countdown. Dark ride I'm going to consider simulators and other things as well. So yes, I know that for the most part, like, simulators are kind of dicey in terms of counting them as dark rides. For the sake of what we're talking about today, I'm going to consider simulators as dark rides. So probably should have brought that up as well. But anyways, yeah, that's a fair point, because there's a kind of a debate to be had whether simulators count as dark rides. But for this video or this live stream, we're going to say yes. But anyways, going into the pre-boarding experience of this ride has not only one, not two, but 3 pre-shows before you ride. Even if it's like completely dead, you're probably going to spend like 20-ish minutes just going through the pre-shows. And if the pre-shows were interesting, you know, that would be something, but they're not. The first kind of goes into Ferrari history in this very pretentious way, which, I mean, it just comes off as, like I said, very pretentious, so that's not great. The second is this kind of explanation of the attraction and the time travel aspect of it. Basically, you are traveling through time in this Ferrari simulator, and they're also hyping up the simulator as the like most state-of-the-art advanced thing that like only Ferrari can make. Once again, kind of into that pretentious category. And then your third one is kind of more of that traditional safety spiel. None of them are that good. None of them are really good at all. I mean, I'll give them credit. If this is, I mean, I will give credit in that it's probably about as fun as taking your Ferrari in like every other week, which is probably what you're gonna have to do. So I guess they're getting people prepared for that, I guess. And then so you have that. That's before you even ride the ride. So you have that. Then you, of course, get into the ride. You have these motion simulator vehicles that are like, you would expect, you know, kind of like what, like Simpsons ride, like kind of the universal simulator vehicles, right? Which aren't necessarily the best, but, you know, on the rides that they're on at most parks, they do their job. But on this ride, for whatever reason, the movement is just so slow and limited. It's also not very convincing and not even entirely in sync with the video. And as for the visuals, on screen, you're in this dome. The visuals are just like mediocre, it's just CGI. It looks like a pretty like mediocre video game, to be honest. As I said, the motion's not even entirely in sync with the video. And then worse yet, if you're on a higher level, there's these kind of handrails and gates that are like to prevent you from walking off as you're boarding. Well, you're going to get a great view of those while you're riding as well, so that's going to be kind of obstructing your view a bit as well. Like I said, just for the movements, really, really poor. Especially for a ride that's themed to racing is supposed to be exciting. It's like genuinely like really bafflingly poor. I mean, I can't believe like a car brand would actually slap their like kind of sponsorship on this or like theme to this, because I mean, and as I mentioned, I wasn't the only one disappointed. There were multiple people in the theater as well who were disappointed after getting off. So, and even on Google, it has like a 2 out of 5 stars, which, considering how generous sometimes Google reviews can be, that is saying something. So I just think it's really bad. If you have to do one of the dark rides in this building, please do Flying Dreams. That's at least a decent flying theater. You'll still have to deal with the like bad pre-show stuff, but you know, at least there's like a decent ride at the end of it. This ride is like genuinely just so weak, and it's not worth doing if it has a long wait, or if you're short on time, because it's still gonna take you a decent bit to ride it, even if there's no wait, unless they're literally having you skip pre-shows, which I don't know how common that is. And that's even if you have the fast pass too, actually, because we did, and it still took us a decent bit to get on for the reason I mentioned. But let's go through the comments. I know Civilian Satellites were in this. 100% agree. One of the most disappointing simulators you've ever been on. I didn't even add this in. I wasn't even aware what this ride was going in. And based on the pre-shows, like it kind of hinted at an interactive element. I didn't even know what like the type of ride it was, and it was really hyping up the simulator. So I was expecting it to be, you know, at least pretty solid. And so for it to be this, I mean, yeah, I was extremely disappointed. Yeah, I know Abu Dhabi has some pretty bad simulators as well. Interesting that Schwaben Park has a dark ride that I saw this, I think, come in during the pre-show spiel, that they have a setup like this. That's not ideal. For a brand with so much money, it's shocking how cheap some of their rides feel. Yeah, no, actually. I mean, this feels really, really cheap. Especially because it's like a newer dark ride. It's, you know, 2017. And I dunk on this ride, like, the park itself, like Port Aventura Resort as a whole, I really enjoy. And most of the rides I think are quite good, but this definitely just kind of really, really bad. Um, yeah, I've heard the Flying Theater at Ferrari World Abu Dhabi is just really bad for some reason. Don't exactly know why that is. Um, but yeah, it's not great. This is a great way to explain it. Feels like they blew all their money on Flying Dreams and then took whatever was left over to make Racing Legends. That feels about right. Because Flying Dreams, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but I'm spoiled because I've done Soarin', so that if you've never done a Flying Theater like Flying Dreams, it's solid and it's still like it's pretty good. And then if you've done some before, it's still like pretty solid for what it is. Um, like the visuals are decent. A lot of it's CG, but that's just what it is at this point. Um, and or there's some parts that are CG. But you still have at least some of the the sensory stuff that you'd expect. And like the transitions are actually pretty good. So, there's at least, like I said, there's definitely good elements to Flying Dreams. Racing Legends, I legitimately don't think there's a compliment I can give it. I also find it funny too that this picture is like of Racing Legends is like extremely unflattering, and yet it's on the website. I don't know why they put this on there, but anyways, um, I'm not even the biggest Soren fan, but I can at least appreciate like that it's for what it is. It's a very good ride. I'm just not that big of a Flying Theater fan, or as big of one as some other people. But it's still like a very well executed ride. So, and Flying Dreams, like I said, solid. Racing Legends, simulator, definitely not. So, we'll move on then to the good side of things, which will bring us to the first part of our top 25 dark rides. So these are going to be from 25 through 11 of my favorite dark rides I've ridden. The only rides I'm going to be excluding are coasters. Anything on Dark Ride database is fair game. I included simulators as well, so I know that some people don't entirely lump those in with dark rides, and that's certainly fair, but we're going to do it for this case. Also, look, Soren's right there in the picture, kind of as a unofficial honorable mention because it did not make my top 25 dark rides. But yeah, we'll go from 25 through 11. Gonna mention here, major spoiler warning. So as I'm going through these, maybe there's a specific one you haven't ridden and you don't want to spoil, maybe you mute it. Or if you're watching later, you can just skip past. That would probably be a good way to go. So wanted to give that spoiler warning in this case for these rides. And also as we're going through, if you've ridden these or are interested in them, definitely give your thoughts in the chat. And then the last thing of note is we'll do some honorable mentions here. There are two rides that did not make it that I decided to include as honorable mentions simply because I'm including two defunct rides, and that's Mission Space at Epcot, specifically the orange side. That's the only one I've done. Was really impressed with how intense it was and how kind of underrated of an attraction it is. And then Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run at Disneyland. You can throw the Hollywood Studios in there as well. I just haven't done that one. Which that's also a very fun ride. Definitely dependent on what position you get in terms of how enjoyable it is. Or if you're in like a, say, engineering position, it can still be fun. Just depending on who's flying the ship, basically. These are definitely two very good dark rides. And I enjoy all of these that are on the list. Obviously, some of these are going to be ranked very differently depending on who you ask, and it's kind of interesting because there's not as much of a general consensus, I feel like, with dark rides. So that's how I'm going to go with these. I'll just go through some. I didn't put the Hershey Chocolate Tour ride on here, but that certainly is definitely a very good one. I think that one's underrated as well, so I appreciate that one getting some love. The You have a hard time deciding what your least favorite dark ride is. Even some of the terrible ones have a corny fun factor to them. That's true. I mean, I've ridden some dark rides that are like just straight up like actually bad, but like in a funny way. Like I think Cat in the Hat is like just the state of it is so bad, but it's so funny. Just riding it, it's like an acid trip and just horrifying ride all in one, and so I enjoy it a lot, and that elevates it quite a bit. And there's some other rides that definitely are pretty scuffed, but definitely have some enjoyment value. So that's why like something like Racing Legends, it like basically has no value in that regard. So that's why it was my least favorite. Um, Boo Blasters was actually would be a dishonorable mention in terms of like being lowest. The Kings Island one, just specifically because it wasn't working properly. There's so many broken targets. It would be a perfectly fine ride if stuff was working. So, I mean, the engineering position is a joke, but on the bright side, if you have like a decent like crew who's like flying it, you can kind of basically like be aware of what's going on. So that's like the good aspect of it. You're just not interacting as much. So I think it's like I said, if you're in that position, it's kind of crew dependent, for sure. I've done all three positions. Definitely pilot's the best one. Gunner is solid enough. Again, also kind of basically it's more so the pilot. You're just kind of depending on it a lot. Because sometimes if someone who's never done it, or a little kid, they're just gonna be kind of flying it everywhere and like crashing into stuff, or like kind of going like at the very top and very bottom that you possibly can, or the very sides, and so it's kind of a mess. But if you have a decent crew, it's fun, and even if you don't, it's like understandable in those circumstances that like it's a little tricky, I guess, to get the hang of. But anyways, liked hearing some of the dark rides that you enjoy and also least enjoy. So we'll move on to our 25th ride, which is going to be Haunted Mansion at Magic Kingdom and Disneyland. So this is, of course, great classic Omnimover dark ride. Has that iconic spooky atmosphere, soundtrack, and still very impressive visuals. I do have a slight preference to the Magic Kingdom one for being longer with that beginning portrait section that Disneyland does not have. And then for the queue, obviously, before you even ride, you got that stretching room, which is obviously a very memorable moment. But like I said, great spooky soundtrack and audio. I love the twisted visuals with, like, say, the upside down stairs, the ballroom ghost, and just the ghosts in general. The Hatbox Ghost is definitely also a highlight. The crystal ball lady, and then obviously that like ending with the cemetery with the singing ghost stands out. Kind of a tonal shift from, I feel like, the rest of the ride, but in a fun way. So just seeing all the ghosts fooling around playing the instruments, and everything, it's got a lot of personality to it. For me personally, it's a little lower on the list just because it has pretty significant proneness to stopping, in my personal experience. The Disneyland one, I just, in my most recent rides, I've just been stopped quite a bit, so that definitely kind of breaks up the pacing. If it happened like just once per ride, that's fine, but like I was getting it like 3-ish times, so that's obviously less than ideal. It's some of the dark rides or attractions I like them to have more of that kind of dynamic ride factor or thrill factor. This ride doesn't really do that from like a vehicle standpoint, but it's still very well done. So that, just like I said, personal preference, why it's going to be a little lower. So that's why it's here at 25. You think I'd like Phantom Manor then? It's super similar but played totally straight. That does sound something that would be right up my alley for sure. I've also done the overlay at Disneyland when it becomes a Nightmare Before Christmas, but I wrote it before I was an enthusiast and hardly remember that specifically, so I can't comment on that, unfortunately. I remember enjoying it when I was younger, but like I could not hardly tell you anything about said experience. of the rides I rode when I was younger, it didn't quite stand out as much as some of the other ones. Next, we have another Disney ride, Toy Story Mania at Disney's Hollywood Studios or California Adventure. I'll have a slight preference toward the Hollywood Studios one because of the better queue. That's literally it. Anyways, this is a very addicting shooting dark ride with varied scenes and mini games. Quite possibly the most addicting and well-designed gameplay-wise as far as a shooting dark ride that I've personally experienced. Not my favorite, just I'll go into some other ones that I like better, but it is a very much like almost completely screen-based attraction, but it utilizes its screens very well. Like I said, abundance of different games that kind of control a little bit differently and have a different style of targets. Like you have that dart dinosaur game, for example. Then you have the ring toss. Then you have the clay pigeons with the military men or the green men. And then you have that ending game with the Wild West game with the mine carts, and you're just spamming that finale to get those last points in. It's a very fun ride, like I said, very addicting. Your arm will likely be tired by the end of the ride, which I guess you could kind of knock it, but over the years, it definitely has its own charm in that way. I have a few shooters I'm gonna have above this because they have more practical elements, which I also like to see in rides, or having a more interesting overall concept. But this is definitely a very high quality attraction that is not to be missed if you've never done it before. And this is always a ride that I try to do every time I'm at California Adventure, and I did it when I was at Hollywood Studios. So, and like I said, that one has the better queue because it has it's more like it has more of that toy. It has like a bunch of the toys. It feels like you've been like shrunken down into the world of Toy Story, much more than the California Adventure one. So, like I said, slight preference for Hollywood Studios in that regard. Next, we move on to a very interesting ride to talk about. This is Dudley Do-Right's Rips Off Falls at Universal's Islands of Adventure. Yes, log flumes, and like I said, non-coasters that are considered dark rides I'm going to put on here, and so Dudley's Do-Rights is going to be here. Best way I can describe this is a great log flume with a fantastic layout that has incredible potential that, in my opinion, is kind of dampened by subpar theming. Let's see, I just saw the longest wait you've ever stood in was for Midway Mania when it was new. Yeah, I'm sure that was nuts back in the day. But Dudley Do-Right, you have characters and moments and scenes, so I would say it is considered a dark ride. Theming is very cartoony. There's a lot of like Disney parody. It has some charm to it. And you have some good highlight moments, such as the drop where you have the train that's coming at you. That's fun. And then the facade off-ride looks spectacular. I will say that. It does look really cool from off-ride. Super iconic. But the actual theming on-ride, the characters have very limited movement, very stilted. I'm not really familiar with the Dudley Do-Right cartoons, at all. I literally had, hardly ever heard of it. I knew that it was something that existed, but I was not familiar with much of it, so I still think that a lot of the theming feels quite cheap and outdated for what the Universal standard has become. So there is that, but this ride does have 3 fantastic drops. I mentioned that drop where you have the train coming at you is one of those great ones, and then you have that final drop that has the airtime hill afterwards. Actually, the drop of the train also does as well. That are really fantastic. Some of the best moments on any log flume. So that is definitely something that I enjoy. Also, weird complaint, I don't like the queue line where you're with the Bear and Beaver head animatronic. If you're there for a while, they're just kind of making jokes. It gets insanely annoying after 5 minutes. I don't know. I didn't like that aspect of it either. Minor kind of nitpick, I guess. I think this could be a truly elite ride with the right sort of re-theme or better improved theming. But as is, it's still one of the better log flumes I've ridden. It's still a very enjoyable ride. I just feel like it's kind of held back by its the theming of the attraction. I think the theme itself is outdated, and I'm not one to advocate for rides to get rethemed often, but I think this is definitely one of those attractions that I would say definitely would deserve it. Um, let's see. You only waited an hour and a half for Midway Mania. Well, I mean that's still a decent bit for Midway Mania or Toy Story Mania. It goes by different names, but depending on the park. But that's still more than I've ever waited for it. So that's definitely a decent bit. You always wonder what kids these days think about IPs like Dudley Do Right and the rest of Cartoon Lagoon. I think I'm very curious how much longer that area is gonna last. I think like Popeyes, I think at least for me personally, like I had at least seen more of the Popeyes cartoons, so like something like uh Bluto's Bilge Rat Barges. I think that's the name of the attraction. I think that's like fine, but Dudley Do Right is like so obscure. I feel like so, and the theming just does not stack up. I mean, the animatronics just, and then the queue line itself also, I would definitely agree. Looks pretty dated as well. So, yeah, I would agree there. So that's Dudley Do Right. I felt like I kind of complained a lot more with that one, but it's still, like I said, it's enjoyable. There is at least some charm to be had with theming, and there's multiple great drops on this ride as well. So that's Dudley Do Right. Next, we're going to move on to Monster Mansion at Six Flags Over Georgia. This is a completely different type of boat dark ride. This is going to be the only Six Flags rep here. And it's a goofy but fun boat dark ride with creative looking monsters and a wacky atmosphere. I just think the atmosphere of this ride, the overall vibe of it, it's outstanding. You have the fun beginning where you go into the house and see all those monsters in the marsh having the party, and they're all vibrant and very wacky looking. Their movements, maybe a little limited, but the designs are cool enough that it's a fun time, and you're just enjoying it. Then you get into the section where you're entering the dangerous part of the marsh that is quite spooky and filled with much more menacing looking monsters that also look very cool in their own right. Then, of course, the cannon goes off, and then you seemingly have that happy ending with all the happier monsters. You see them again. Before then, you're potentially eaten by a monster. It kind of ends on a very weird note that kind of doesn't make sense, but it kind of adds to the charm of it. But yeah, no, this ride is really good. Very wacky, very creative theme. Absolutely love it. It's an older ride that got redone, so I know something like this isn't super realistic to expect at like a bunch of Six Flags parks. But man, this is definitely such a gem for Six Flags Over Georgia. And if you're at the park, definitely do this ride. It's very much worthwhile. You haven't done it since it was Monster Plantation. You loved it then too. I'm actually not too familiar with what the changes were that they made. I believe there were some things with there was more, I think, just kind of changes that just in the modern day made sense to be made, is from my understanding. But I'm not sure in terms of like the storyline and like how the characters looked and everything, how much that changed. I have not actually looked at a POV of it, but I'd be curious to see what it looked like back in the day. But yeah, that's going to be Monster Mansion at Six Flags Over Georgia. Like I said, highly recommend it if you're over there. And then we'll move on to Spaceship Earth at Epcot. This is the definitive Epcot attraction, a classic ride and engineering marvel, just for how long this ride is and the fact that it all takes place in this pretty large ball, but it's still crazy if you think about it, how long the ride is, considering like you can see from the outside, like just the whole thing. I mean, with your own eyes, like the whole thing, the whole building, the ride is in, so it's pretty incredible in that aspect. I mean, it's 15 minutes, so that's pretty crazy. It basically provides the story of the advancements in human communication, and it does that very well. You have that really cool beginning at the beginning with the stars. You're going up into the stars in your ship. It's an incredible atmosphere. Then you go into the first part of human history, which is cavemen, and then it advances, jumping from time periods and innovations in communication, such as like the written word, libraries, the written press, and then even now they've incorporated like computers and other aspects as well. So like you're jumping from like the Ice Age, ancient Egypt, Greece, Rome, Renaissance, and then the centuries before now. So it is pretty cool in that aspect. Definitely a ride I have a lot of respect for, just in terms of it being made so long ago and they actually were able to make it work. The animatronics and set pieces also look great, so definitely got to give some kudos there. I only rode this once is the one thing. Some of these other rides I at least rode more than once. This is one I've only done once, so definitely would like to get some more rides on it. You know, it's, I think, one of those rides that I definitely see myself riding every time I go to Epcot if possible, so definitely looking forward to more rides to come. This is definitely one, like I said, definitive Epcot attraction. You kind of have to do it if you're going there for the first time, assuming it's open, of course, and not like under a reefer or anything like that. But next we'll go into number 20, which is going to be Challenge of Mondor at Enchanted Forest. So this is a trackless shooting dark ride at an independent park in Enchanted Forest, and just a little bit, I believe, south of Portland. And it has a very infectious and memorable kind of, its theming is impressive, but at the same time, it definitely has that like homemade feel, or like kind of small, like kind of like, you know, the feel that the rest of the park has in terms of like just how the theming is done. It definitely kind of applies to the ride, which is really neat. Very infectious atmosphere in that sense. It does have some really nice physical sets and figures. I like the charming medieval theming with the massive flying bat target. I think is what it is that that you have flying in. I thought that was really cool. You got the dragon animatronics, which actually were decently impressive. The warlock room with the warlock was pretty cool. And then there's this room with, I think, like an octopus that like has these lights and everything that looks really cool. There's just a lot of interesting looking things with this ride. There's a lot to look at while you're shooting. I will say the shooting system isn't the easiest to use. My brother had this thing down like pretty much unlocked though the first time he rode it. We actually rode it twice, despite the pay-per-ride system. And he had it down the first time. It took me that second time to really figure it out, although I'll just mention that I'm not the best with shooting dark rides, so that also will probably affect my enjoyment of shooting dark rides, why I'd prioritize something like this over some of the other ones that are more refined from a gameplay standpoint. But I still thought this was a very enjoyable dark ride. Civilian Satellite, you enjoyed Challenge of Mondor, but it was just a bit too dark to make out some of the sets. Still super impressive for a park like Enchanted Forest. Alrighty. Interesting, I didn't find it to be too dark, although I do remember it being definitely not the like most well lit, so I guess I could kind of see that. But yeah, it's a very impressive ride. I definitely agree in that with you there, that it's for this specific park, it's super impressive. I knew this ride was one that like people said was pretty cool, but I was still extremely impressed with this attraction. It's my favorite ride in the park, and it's my favorite ride that I rode in Oregon between Enchanted Forest and Oaks Amusement Park. So yeah, very, very unique one for this list. There won't be too many non-Universal, non-Disney rides. We've had Monster Mansion and now Challenge of Mondor, but these are two of the few that we have. And speaking of non-Disney, non-Universal, that transitions us over to Sesame Street Street Mission at Port Aventura. This is another shooting dark ride. that I think is very creative. It just has this hilarious storyline where the whole premise of the ride is that you are helping Detective Grover try to find out who stole the big cookie for the Cookie Day Parade. I mean, in the Sesame Street universe, who could that possibly be? It's just so funny and so goofy and like just so like it's like something like yeah, it's like a perfect like kids friendly attraction like storyline that's so funny. Just the idea of it, it's just so cool in that way. The pre-show room is actually pretty neat. It's in this neat building, and then you have Detective Grover giving the backstory both in his physical form, which is this really cool animatronic. They really killed it actually with the Sesame Street animatronics. I gotta say, they look fantastic. I mean, even some of them, their movements literally look like they're being like puppeteered or something. It's pretty crazy. And then also in digital form as well. And then there's also a speaking language like kind of switching between English, Spanish, and I believe Italian. And then there's also subtitles so you can read once the language is switched, which is pretty interesting how they did that. Um, the now some of you might be wondering how can you do like a shooting dark ride with Sesame Street characters? Well, your shooting devices are is not like a traditional gun or blaster. It's these clue collectors that basically you point at something and you rack up points like you would on like a normal shooting ride, but these are to help Detective Grover like find some clues basically. Also, a great mix of practical sets and screens, and there's varied locations, so each of the areas are different. It definitely adds some variety to the overall attraction. It's really good. I forgot to mention, but yeah, the final room smelled like cookies. Yes, that was definitely a nice touch for sure. Just like I said, the theming of this attraction was very impressive. I knew that this ride received praise, but I still was definitely blown away by how good it was for, I mean, a Sesame Street dark ride. Who would have ever known it would be this good? Especially, I'm not like someone who cares that much for the IP. I watched it a little bit when I was younger, but it wasn't even like one of my absolute favorite shows. Maybe it was when I was like really, really little, but yeah, no, it's super impressive. Uh, Only got the one ride on this one. Definitely one I wish I got more rides on. But it was still definitely fantastic. So that's going to make it for our number 19 spot. Number 18, we go to a completely different ride. We got E.T. Adventure at Universal Studios Florida. This is a true classic dark ride. Has some memorable scents with that forest. I mean, there's people that sell items that like are literally made to smell like this ride. So like, I mean, that tells you how memorable the scent is of that redwood forest. The queue is in and the beginning of the ride is in. You obviously have very memorable character designs. This is a very practical based ride, which I absolutely love. And the sets are also incredible as well. I also just love, I mean, you're riding the bikes, like, you know, the kids doing ET. I think that's brilliant in terms of incorporating that into the ride with that suspended ride system. That's just brilliant, I think. And just the concept of the ride as well, being able to visit and save ET's home planet, which we never saw in the movie, and being able to see the aliens and planet, which we've never seen before, it's just awesome. Like, I mean, like just the concept of this ride, I just absolutely love it. I can't say that enough. Um, and then as for like when you actually get to the alien planet, there's just so many weird, goofy designs for these aliens that are so funny. Some of them kind of definitely border on the hinge of being like maybe creepy, which people have made fun of, but I still think they look really cool. All the different animatronics and the actual planet is like so vibrant in color. There's so much to look at with the different life forms and plants and everything. Like it's so cool. So this ride, it needs to be preserved. It's the only ET left. I absolutely love this ride. Definitely needs to stick around for the long haul. And I really hope it does. Um, classic ride. Your sister has a Filipino name, and ET could never say it right at the end of the ride. Yeah. Also, ET does attempt to say your name at the end of the ride. Not always successful. Not successful in my case either. But um, don't even exactly. I just remembered it was like pretty off. So yeah. So ET Adventure at 18. Like I said, very good classic ride. 17, we got Transformers the Ride 3D. So um, it is so pretty much this is like kind of going like a complete 180 from ET Adventure. We have a ride that is mostly physical sets based and classic, to a ride that I guess it is getting decently old now, just in terms of like the scope of rides, but definitely a more what people would think of modern attraction. And both Universal Studios Florida and Hollywood could be applied here. I have the Florida one just here as a preference because the queue is slightly better presented, I guess. But it's a chaotic and exciting, action-packed ride. And I don't care for the Transformers IP, so the fact that it made this list and is this high definitely, goes to show how good it is. Mostly screen-based, but it does have good practical transitions through scenes with the fire, and it also has the fire effect, which is cool, and Megatron at the end of the ride. So obviously that is pretty cool to see once he's defeated. And then riders, you get thrown around a decent bit. This ride is definitely kind of, when you ride it for the first time, or if you haven't ridden in a while, movements are unpredictable thanks to the motion platform ride vehicles or motion platform mounted ride vehicles. Definitely gives a pretty thrilling ride experience in that way. And I would say that vehicle design in general is one of my favorites for any dark ride. So love that. It's also around 4 minutes, which, considering it's like really action packed, it is great length for that. So yeah, definitely very, like I said, very strong in the thrills aspect. Even if it doesn't quite fill out it's a lot more screens than practical elements. Just the ride system and then just the visuals as well look good. And I mean, it's Transformers, and like those films, like the one thing you can kind of say for those movies, if nothing else, it's like, the action is pretty engaging, and then the ride, it certainly is. So whether or not you actually care for the movies otherwise or not. So the ride definitely delivers there as well. So Transformers, definitely a very good ride, and should definitely be a mainstay at the Universal parks for years to come. So there you go. And next we have Men in Black, Alien Attack at Universal Studios Florida. So our Universal Studios Florida run continues. This is my personal favorite shooting dark ride. This is a fantastic shooter with a great theme and impressive animatronic targets and sets. Just the scale of these sets and the animatronics for being a shooting dark ride is absolutely incredible. It's also very addicting as well. Kind of in the way I mentioned that Toy Story is. This is definitely also a very addicting ride as well. If it was not busy and this was my home park, I could definitely see myself, lapping this if I were a pass holder, for sure. And then, so some of the other things that are really cool with this ride is the really gimmick of the spinning, where you can fire at the other vehicles to gain points and it causes them to spin. It's also relatively easy to hit that target. So there was one time I just tested to see how much I could make this other thing spin, and they went crazy. So that is absolutely incredible. I also like, so the animatronic targets, a lot of them also, when you hit them, they have a reaction as well, which is super satisfying. So that's really cool. And another one where like the alien designs, I mean, it's Men in Black. So, I mean, if you've seen the movies, there's definitely just a lot of wacky alien designs and whatnot. And that definitely is evident in this ride. And they use that to pretty much full force here. There's some really cool looking alien targets as well. So overall, it is absolutely fantastic. This is another ride too that, it's kind of getting up there in age. Men in Black, not exactly the most relevant IP nowadays, so I just hope that this thing sticks around for like a long, long time because this is so good. And I mean, I if they ever do replace this, I would have doubts of what they're replacing to be better than this. Even though Universal definitely has some incredible dark rides as of late, but Men in Black Alien Attack, absolutely fantastic. If you love shooting dark rides or well dark rides in general, this is definitely a must do when you're at the Universal Orlando Resort. Men in Black is the GOAT shooting dark rides, 0 screens, all action, and amazing sets. 100% really well said. Definitely agree there. It is certainly absolutely fantastic. Next, we have Jurassic Park the Ride at Universal Studios Hollywood. This is going to be our first defunct ride. Theoretically, you could include Jurassic Park River Adventure at Universal or Universal's Islands of Adventure. The reason I didn't include it despite writing it is based on my own experience. That one was in such horrid condition. There was so much scaffolding and dinosaurs missing, and the animatronics, some of the ones that were in there were like in ridiculously poor condition that like it legitimately would not have made this list. It was that bad, unfortunately, but you know, when it's firing on all cylinders, it would also theoretically be here probably. But the Hollywood version, I definitely had better rides on that. So I'll just kind of be referring to this one, but like I said, you could kind of apply it to Islands of Adventure if working properly, or mostly properly. Very atmospheric and classic boat ride with the fun of dinosaurs, and you have that incredible final drop finale, which is one of my favorite final drops on certainly any non-coaster for sure, and even maybe counting coasters because of how memorable it is. With that T-Rex hanging over you as you go plunge down that drop, it's just absolutely incredible. The dinosaur animatronics, they may look a little dated and not have the best movement, but they still look very good. And I mean, they're dinosaurs. It's just fun. So I just like that aspect of the ride. I mean, it's Jurassic Park. You're entering the gate as well. That's like a super magical and cool moment if you've ever seen the movies, is when the gate opens and you see the dinosaurs. I mean, that's just a brilliant way to start the ride. So definitely got to highlight that. And I like the general just kind of vibe of the ride where you're just kind of touring through, relaxed, and then all of a sudden you get taken off course, and it just kind of becomes a disaster where you go into the building, and that you eventually do have to evacuate, and then there's all the raptors coming in and just absolute chaos. I think it works really well though. So, yeah, very good boat dark ride. I guess it's more of shoot the shoot style, I guess technically, but very, very good. I haven't done Jurassic World yet at Universal Studios Hollywood, so I will have to definitely consider what that is compared to what it used to be when I write it, but I definitely have high expectations for that. I just saw Civilian Satellite. You were heading out. Thanks for checking out the stream, and have a good night. Oh yeah, and today's Pi Day, so happy Pi Day for all who celebrate. So there we have it. Next, we'll move on to our last few for this first part of the countdown. We got Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland. So we're just doing the Disneyland one. I've run the Magic Kingdom one. I will give Magic Kingdom credit. They do have a better queue than Disneyland. That's about the only thing I'm going to give them. It is, besides that, the Magic Kingdom one is a lot shorter. I don't like the way it's sequenced as much, so not really considered part of this. This is very much just a Disneyland one, because this one is like around 14 minutes in length, which is crazy. And it's really just a long pirate adventure through several different areas with grand scale sets, memorable scenes, charming characters, and of course a legendary soundtrack with the Pirate's Life for Me song in there that has become extremely iconic. So the two plunges as well that you have on the Disneyland one, they're nice to have. So, you know, it's good to add that in there as well. And then if you're just curious of like some of my favorite places, I love I think the Bayou beginning and the Disneyland one's really cool, but the caverns with all the treasure is really sick. And then I love the grand pirate ship battle with the fort. That's really cool. I mean, just that reveal in general, also seeing that is very impressive. And then just going through the town, seeing all the pirate hijinks and everything is really fun as well. You also have the iconic scene of the dog holding the keys with the prisoners who are trying to get out of there, but they can't. Just a lot of classic charm with this ride, a lot of iconicness with it. And of the, I guess, quote unquote, like classic Disney rides, well, you can maybe argue one that's coming up later, but this is definitely one of my favorites. So it is really incredible. And I mean, Magic Kingdom Pirates, I will say, if you haven't ridden Disneyland version, the Magic Kingdom Pirates on its own is still a very good ride. So even though like it's not as good as like the other version, it's still on its own a very good ride. So it definitely still deserves to be recognized as a classic in its own right and very iconic. And being what brought the Pirates of the Caribbean experience to a lot of people, because it still incorporates a lot of the aspects that made the original one great. So it definitely deserves some love there. And whether you're at Magic Kingdom or Disneyland, you got to find a way to ride this. I mean, especially now because we have an entire film franchise that is based on it that was pretty successful and had some fun movies in there. So that's also a part of that. But yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean comes in at number 14. Alrighty. So let's see. The Connects expert. Welcome to the stream. Can't wait to see the dark rides at Epic Universe. That's actually part of the reason I did this stream, is because I think I'm very excited for the dark rides coming to Epic Universe, and I want to see how they would affect my rankings. I think it would be interesting to see how that plays out, because they have some pretty incredible looking ones with the Monsters Unchained. Obviously, it looks incredible. Battle for the Ministry or of the Ministry, the Harry Potter attraction. Looks like that's going to be absolutely fantastic. You're going to have Mario Kart, of course. So those right there are going to be quite the lineup. So that'll definitely be a plus for Epic Universe. But moving on to the list, we'll go to Avatar Flight of Passage at Disney's Animal Kingdom. So this is an interesting one because a lot of people would rank this extremely high. Like we're talking like, number one or top three or top five at worst. And I would say, I've only gotten one ride on this. This is another one where I've only gotten one ride on it. And so, I might be a little lower on it. But this is still a very great attraction. Really just an exciting flying theater. Like I just what they were able to do with a flying theater and making it as incorporating more of an exciting like thrill factor to it is incredible. But you also have that just beautiful journey of being able to go through Pandora and riding on a banshee. Like, I mean, that's just such a cool concept. And it's definitely the best flying theater I've ridden. No doubt about that. So, and for being mostly a screen-based attraction, it's also very excellent in that way as well. Although you have like some sense and like sensory effects in there as well. I thought the queue was quite good too. You get great views of the overall land. And then you also have some cool areas such as like the cave section, with the cave paintings, the Pandora habitat with the bioluminescent plants is really cool. You have those labs with the like moving organisms, which I actually didn't really know about beforehand, so that was really neat to see all that. And then of course you have the iconic Navi figure in the tube, which was really cool to see. That was kind of a bucket list thing of mine because I saw it on all the thumbnails and tons of pictures of it, so it was cool to finally see that in person. It certainly was impressive. So that's even before you ride it. Then once you ride the attraction, you have a very, like I said, dynamic flying theater attraction. And then especially being in that Banshee riding position, the movements that probably just it makes it more fun. You have a great soundtrack throughout the ride. It just works perfectly with it in terms of just the syncing of it. And then you have the breathing effect, which brought another level of immersion on the Banshee, so that was cool. And I like how you go into the different areas of Pandora. Like, you are truly exploring the different areas. You have like the different forests, you go around the floating mountains, you go over the ocean, and then you have like the dark light up cave as well for a little bit. So there's a lot of different areas to explore too. So that's pretty neat. As I said, it's going to be a little lower for me just because I have preference to some other types of attractions. And I only got one ride on it, and I will mention it wasn't the most ideal location. It was like a bottom left side seat, so maybe upon rewrite it could even rise a little more, but still definitely a really incredible attraction. I can't quite get there in terms of this is one of the absolute best dark rides I've ridden. I don't know if a rewrite would change that. I think it could rise a little bit. I don't know that my opinion would change that much, but you know, it's still very well done, and there's a reason it is loved a lot. So, yeah, curious to see if Monsters or Ministry will overtake Beijing Jurassic, which that looks incredible as the best Universal Dark ride. I mean, I can't. There'll be some people who've ridden all of them. Probably not a large amount of people, but will be interesting to gather their thoughts on the attraction. On those attractions to see how they stack up. Soarin' is really good too, though. You wish it was more than 60 FPS. Fair. Soarin' was like pretty close to making the list, even though it wasn't an honorable mention. It was like, if I did a top 30, it would have been in there. So just for reference, that's what it would have been. For Flight of Passage, you wish it was more than 60 FPS. That's fair. Yeah, because Soren seems a little more crisp in that way, I guess. But we'll move on to our next ride, which is going to be the last non-Disney one. This is Timber Mountain Log Ride at Knott's Berry Farm. This is a terrific classic log ride. Has a great use of the mountain structure in many scenes. I think very underrated as well. Just because I think this ride, just the way you go through the caverns, there being all the animals, the lumber workers, the waterfalls, beautiful lights. This is like a beautiful attraction, both inside the mountain and outside of it. So I think it's really cool in that way. And then it also has two pretty nice drops. Definitely not as good in the drops department as, say, Dudley Do-Rights or another log flume we're going to talk about here in a bit. But it does have an indoor one that I think is actually the better of the two because it kind of catches you by surprise. And the final one still is very like satisfying final drop as well. So those are definitely some good aspects for this. This also makes for a very nice night ride, having been able to experience that. And I've actually probably ridden this ride more as the Halloween Hootenanny overlay instead of the regular. I have done the regular one before, but I've probably actually ridden the Halloween version more. And that definitely adds a fun factor to it with like some different lighting, added spiders, webbing, pumpkins, creatures, aliens. Sometimes they move things around to give it kind of and add new props as well, and a new soundtrack as well is also included in there. It just creates for a very spooky but fun feel. So this is definitely a really excellent log ride. I think it doesn't get enough credit for that, just probably because, you know, Disneyland's is pretty close by and there's a better log flume, but it's still very good in its own right. So that's going to be Timber Mountain Log Ride, and that'll take us to our last ride until we get to the top 10, which I'll do a segment before we do that. And that's going to be Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Definitely one of the more, this is definitely one of the rides that on the list was on the more impressive side to me and just related to expectations. brilliant use of a trackless dark ride. It really this attraction really captures that like cartoony madness that really is in the spirit of these like newer Mickey Mouse cartoons, which I had actually seen beforehand. They're pretty entertaining. My brother liked watching them, so I had seen some of them beforehand, so I at least was kind of familiar with like the vibe the attraction was going for, which was cool. I love the pre-show. That train explosion with the screen breaking open. I still don't really understand how they do that effect, but it's awesome. And then the interaction with Goofy and the cast member is cool. Only did this ride once, but the one time I did it, it was fantastic. I'd love to ride this more. I've only done the one at Hollywood Studios. Disneyland version you could probably apply here. I've even heard that one's a little better. But going back to the ride, great blend of screens and physical props and effects. The animatronics specifically for Mickey and Minnie look, I think, actually really good considering they're, bringing out a 2D character into the actual world. Kind of hard to do, but I think they actually did a really nice job of doing that. And again, a variety of locations. You have the Wild West, an amusement park. You have that tornado that you have the room for as well. And then like a paradise and the ocean, along with like the dance lesson, and then like that park ending. You just go through so many locations, which adds to the frenetic energy of the ride. I also love the waterfall illusion. It was super good. I was surprised how convincing that was in terms of it seeming like you were actually going down that waterfall. It was crazy. And then the way the trackless dark rides moves in different sections is different. Like the way it moves during the dance sequence at the beginning and end, for example, is different. So that definitely also is a great use of the trackless dark ride. I thoroughly enjoyed this one, and I was surprised that it is up there as one of my favorite dark rides. Although I was kind of surprised when I made this list that it actually didn't make the top 10, but I think that just speaks to how strong the top 10 actually is. So that'll wrap it up for the first 15 of these. And then we'll move on to our next segment. Looks like that tonight it's a little bit of a busier night, or notifications were having some issues, but I figure we can still do some Guess a Dark Ride. If nothing else, we got a few people in here, so that can work as far as Guess the Dark Ride goes. I'll just kind of show an explanation for this here, if it helps. Pretty much, I have some dark rides that I'm already thinking of, or that I already have actually set. And you will ask yes or no questions in the chat about the dark ride. It's supposed to say dark ride, a leftover coaster, but you can go basically for apply dark ride wherever it says coaster, because I realized I kind of forgot to replace that there. But you can ask questions like yes or no questions in the chat. That'll serve as clues. I'll answer them, and that'll get you closer to trying to guess the dark ride. Don't know how many people we have in here, so we'll kind of see how this works. Yeah, Dark Ride database does exist. It's not as refined as RCDB, but it's a little newer, but they are, growing. So, yeah, Dark Ride database is a real thing. You don't use it for this game, please. And I guess we can try to go ahead with Guess the Dark Ride. So, that will be the plan. So, guess away your questions in the chat, and we will see if you're able to get the dark ride. I do have my first one ready, so you can start guessing the dark rides. Siri went off randomly.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you
said. Anyways. Okay, I don't know why it's doing that. There we go. Let's see. Is it at a Disney park? It is. And it is in the US. So far we've narrowed it down to a Disney park in the US. So we have a dark ride that is, once again, at a Disney park in the US. So that narrows it down a little bit, and it is in California. So we do have a dark ride at a Disney park in California. So far that is what we have. Opened after 2000. It definitely did not. So no. It did not open before, it did not open after 2000. It opened before 2000. It is not Midway Mania. It is not Little Mermaid. It is not at California Adventure. So that would mean it's at Disneyland by default. So far we have, it's at, and Connect's Expert got it. Well, it is Alice in Wonderland. So Connect's Expert is on the board. Great guess. Which is actually, of like the really old, like very, very classic Disney dark rides. This opened in 1958. Amongst those bunch that came in like the first either year or first few years that Disney opened, this is definitely one of my favorites of the ones there. So Alice in Wonderland is the correct answer. And we will move on to the next one. So I do have my next dark ride. Guess away. Would have been one of your last guesses. Peter Pan was a good guess. Obviously very iconic, but not quite the one. Saw some notifications were going off here. Let's see. But I do have my next dark ride, so you can start guessing away. Let's see. This one is not at a Disney park, and it is not at a Universal park, so it is neither of those. So not at a Disney and not at a Universal. So that'll potentially make this one more tricky. Although the only issue is with so few people in chat, it'll also, I don't know necessarily dark ride knowledge, so that is, if this one is too difficult, we'll see. It is not Flooded Mine. It is not in the United States, so we are looking internationally for this one. So, you know your dark rides already. I didn't pick any that were like super obscure or anything, so at least not to what I would have figured is super obscure. So, and looks like, and I think it was a good call not to. Not Symbolica. Let's see, was R&R involved with the project, or in the project? To my knowledge, they were not. So I'm going to say no, they were not. Let's see. It is not Arthur, but it is in Europe. So we do have a European dark ride. I'm making absolutely sure, yeah, R&R was not involved in this. So far we have European dark ride. Not a whole lot to go off of. But it is in Germany. So yes, we do have a dark ride in Germany. So it is by default not at Efteling, and it is not at Europa Park either. So we do not have a park yet. Phantasialand it is at, though. So we do have a dark ride at Phantasialand. So that is that should help narrow it down a decent bit. So dark ride at Phantasialand. Not the log flume. It is not a log flume of any sort. It is, I'm going to butcher this. It is not Geister Risksha. It is not the Flying Theater. It's not the Indoor Drop Tower either. So neither of those. It is not Hollywood Tour. So none of those. Maybe this one is, I thought this one was well known enough. No, this is not the one in the park's Chinese themed area. I'm curious. Let me look at. They do have a decent amount of dark rides. Okay, I know which one. It's not Fengju Palace. It's not Hollywood Tour. I'm just like looking through to make sure I have the names for these now at this point, since it's not the Madhouse. Yeah, this one might be tricky. I guess I'll give a hint. I'll give a hint. It's a shooting dark ride. So that hopefully will help. This is a shooting dark ride. Alright, there we go. Mouse is the correct answer. Mouse out chocolate. I'll take that as the correct answer. So charged on PC, you are on the board. I've heard pretty good things about it, so and I thought as far as the Phantasialand Dark Rides go, it was one of the more recognizable ones, so I included it. But that'll be that one. So I have my next dark ride. You can guess away. Was planning, I think I'll do 6 rounds of this will be what we end up doing. So this is round 3. So after this, 3 more after that. Sounds about right. Let's see. It is, you were just thinking of the other ones. It's fair. This one is not at a Disney park. So, no, we have another non-Disney dark ride. So, not from Disney. It is not a Universal dark ride. Not in sorry, it is a US, it is in the US though. It is not themed to an IP. No, this is original theme. So this is a dark ride in the US, not a Disney or Universal, that has an original theme. It is not an IP based attraction. So we'll see how that goes in terms of trying to figure it out. It is not Hershey's Chocolate Tour. You might want to narrow down maybe the type of. You can also ask like what the type of the attraction is, or things like that as well, because I haven't really seen that as much. It is not at a Legacy Cedar Fair, nor is it at a Six Flags park. Well, the Connects expert, you didn't name it, but I can give it. The Lost Island Dark Ride is the correct answer. Because it is Volcano Quest for the Golden. I would have just taken Volcano, but Volcano Quest for the Golden Idol. But I'll give it to Connects just because you got the ride even if you didn't get the name. So the Connects expert. So. Or the Connects, I just realized it's the Connexpert, I guess, in terms of pronouncing that, but there we go. So that was round 3. I'll do, like I said, 3 more of these, and I do have my next one, so you can guess away. This one, well, I guess actually, Vulcan was actually quicker than I expected, all things considered. I think this one might be quicker than at least Mouse Out Chocolate because that one took a while. So, this is not a shooting dark ride, so I can rule that out. It is in the US. It is not at a Disney park. So, we do have a US dark ride, but it is not at a Disney park, and it is not a shooting dark ride. But it is a Universal dark ride, so we do have a Universal dark ride. It is not a simulator. So not a simulator attraction. It is, it has some screens, but I definitely wouldn't say this is primarily screen-based. It's not E.T. So far we have a Universal dark ride in the US, not a simulator or screen-based. It's not Forbidden Journey. So, and the park itself still is yet to be identified, which is potentially worth noting. But let's see. So yeah, US Universal dark ride. It is not at Universal Studios Florida. So all Universal, yes, this one has screens. I wouldn't really say it's like screen based in the sense of that's the main feature of this ride. But actually, I think that in itself might be a little bit of a hint. It is not Kong. It's not Spider-Man. It is not Jurassic River. I said it was not at Universal Studios Florida, right? Actually, yeah, because all those ones are islands. It is not Cat in the Hat. So none of those. So, oh, Christian has come in the chat. All right, we're doing Guess the Dark Ride. There you go. It's not the studio tour. So Christian, just to catch you up, we're doing Guess the Dark Ride. So far, we have a Universal dark ride in the US. That is not at Universal Studios Florida. It's also not a simulator, screen-based, or a shooter. So that's what you need to know, I guess. We still have yet to identify a park outside of it. It's not Studios Florida. Well, Christian gets it right off the bat. It is Secret Life of Pets Off the Leash. So that is the correct answer. So Christian is on the board with a point. And like literally just came right in and just did it. That's fantastic. Yeah, I think you just assumed it was islands, and forgot Hollywood, which is fair. That oftentimes happens. So, that's fair. Alrighty, I do have my next dark ride, so you can guess away in chat once you are ready to go. And the Demonator is in chat. Hello, we're doing Guess the Dark Ride. So you can ask yes or no questions in terms of trying to figure out the Dark Ride and basically go from there. If you haven't played before, you'll kind of figure it out from chat. It is not in Europe. Islands is the only Universal park you've been to. Interesting. This one is based off a film, so this dark ride is based off a film, and it is a Disney dark ride. It is not Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and it is not in Florida. So far we have a Disney, a Disney park dark ride that is not in Europe and not in Florida. It is not Rise of the Resistance. It's not in California either, so you can just scrap the U.S. as well. Which, I mean, at this point, by process of elimination, that means that this is at a Asian Disney park. So, so far we have a dark ride at an Asian Disney park. It is not a Disneyland Paris. We ruled out Europe already, so it cannot be. It is not Marvel themed, and it is not at Hong Kong Disneyland. So, it is not Beauty and the Beast. It is not Mystic Manor. So, it is not Journey to the Center of the Earth. I'm not going that crazy with the specifics. It's not Toy Story Mania at Disney Sea. That is funny, though. But this attraction is at Tokyo Disney Sea, so that is accurate. This is a Tokyo Disney Sea attraction. It is not... I assume it's called Ariel's Under the Sea Adventure, still at Tokyo Disney Sea, but it is not that one. It is not Tower of Terror. It is not Sinbad. It is not Frozen. It is not Soarin'. So none of those. So once again, Tokyo Disney Sea Dark Ride. And there we go. Christian has it very close with Connect's expert, actually, but Christian got it on my screen first. Peter Pan's Neverland Flight. I guess it's Neverland Adventure, but I mean, with Dark Ride names being so long, not really gonna care about that in terms of the spelling. So Christian is correct, and heading into the last round, it is a tie right now in points between Christian and the Connect's expert. Both of you have 2 points. Charged on PC, you have 1. So still, any of you could win, just based on how I do the thing. But that'll bring us to the final round. So guess away in the chat. And Christian coming in with that tie so far with a significant disadvantage, coming in only 2 rounds ago. So this will be the last round. Guess away. Yeah, you forgot about the new expansion. That's fair. I mean, it's still pretty darn new, so I can understand that. Pirates of the Deep Sea, Fiesta, Texas. Not quite, no. I have not ridden it, so... and for reference, I've been to... Well, the park... It's also not at a park I've been to, so that may help you. You're going to change your strategy a bit. Alrighty. It is not in America. It's not in the U.S. So, it is outside of the U.S. So that is the one thing we have so far. Dark ride outside of the U.S. It is in Europe. So, there is that. Is it a top 20 dark ride? You know, like, I mean, I probably wouldn't say it is. People definitely like it, but I don't know that this is one that people are like absolutely vouching as top 20 on the planet. So, I'm gonna say probably not. Yeah, this is at an independent park. I would say this falls in line at an how would I say this? Yeah, I think this would be considered an independent park, so I'm gonna say yes for that. It's not Efteling. Oh, Charge on PC got it. It is Piraten in Batavia is the correct answer at Europa Park. Wow. Um, Alrighty, that is that's one way to get it. So that is the correct answer. So um, you know what? If you guys in chat, I had two more dark rides ready. I originally wasn't because um, just because we didn't have uh, too many people in here initially. But if you guys want to do the last two, I'm totally game for that. Especially because you, Christian, came in like pretty late here. So if you want to do two more rounds of guess the dark ride, we can go for it. All right, then yeah, let's do that. Sounds good. Um, you've only heard of the Megalite Piraten. I mean, this ride is probably one of the more well-known dark rides at Europa. So, and it was initially destroyed by fire too. So it's got that sort of status with it. Um, but anyways, I do have the next dark ride. Um, considering if I should give a hint off the bat or not, I guess we'll go through the first few clues and see if I should do it. So you can guess away in the chat for this next one, and we'll see where this goes. This is not in Asia, so we have that. It's not in the Middle East, which would be considered as Asia, so it's um, not there. But it is in the U.S., so there is that. Would a baby be able to ride this? Oh boy, I gotta go look at this thing's the height requirements if that was if it ever was listed, if it had one. I think honestly I'm gonna say probably. I don't know that I can find like a height requirement for it, but although apparently it did. Anyways, I don't know. That's probably not super helpful. But it is at a Disney park. It is not in Florida. So that by default means it's at a Disney park in California. So let's see. It is not Star Tours, but it is at California Adventure. I think I will wait to give the clue and see if it's actually needed or not. So, this ride is not cloned. Yeah, no, definitely not cloned. Not Roger Rabbit, not Midway Mania, not Web Slingers. So far we have a ride at DCA, not cloned. And both those rides actually exist already. So, you see, it isn't Monsters Inc., but that kind of actually is a hint, actually, if you think about it. So I'll kind of leave it there. The answer isn't Monsters Inc., but you know that actually might be a hint to what this thing is. It's not Cars. It's not Grizzly Rapids. Superstar Limo is the correct answer. One of the most infamous, just horrific, failed dark rides and failed Disney rides in history. I mean, this thing lasted what for less than a year. It was just a complete dumpster fire, from my understanding. So, yeah, Superstar Limo is the correct answer. Yeah, the Monsters Inc. ride at Tokyo Disneyland name escapes me right now, but that one looks pretty good. So, yeah, so now this will be the true final round. We'll do one last round. And Christian is currently in the lead of 3 points, but if someone else gets the last point between Charged on PC and the Connexpert, you will win because you got the most recent one correct, if that makes sense. So, any of you three can still win. If anyone else has come in since, you can also join just for the fun of it. But I do have my next dark ride, so you can guess away. Alrighty, so trying to make sure I have all the information I need for this one here. It is not Sesame Street mission at Port Aventura. How Beyond Thrills in the chat? How you doing? Hope you're doing good. We are doing a Guess the Dark Ride game, so if you want to join, that's what we're up to. This is the last round, but feel free to join if you want to do that. Basically asking yes or no questions to serve as clues. So this dark ride is not in Asia, but it is in the US. So far we have a dark ride in the US. I think most would say this ride is better than Fast and Furious Supercharged. It is not in Florida. There is, to my understanding, no water involved, so I'm going to say there isn't. Would I wait longer than an hour for it? Probably not, but I haven't ridden it, so that probably in itself could serve as a clue. It's not in California. So basically all we have is a US dark ride. It is not at a Disney park, so we can rule that out. It's not Volcano. That was actually one of the ones earlier. It is not Fire in the Hole, so not that. Not Flooded Mine either. So we have a US dark ride. Basically nothing else. East Coast. Well, it is on the east side of the US. I want to make sure that this, I think this state is technically considered like East Coast as in touching the water. Let's see. Pretty sure it is. Let's see. Yeah, it is. So we're gonna say East Coast. It is not Lego Factory Tour. It's not Boo Blasters at Carowinds. Let me just check here. Yeah, so, sorry, going back to this. Not Lego Factory Tour, not Boo Blasters at Carowinds. So we have a US dark ride on the East Coast. Not a Disney ride. Not any of the ones that have been mentioned. It is not at a Legoland park, so... but it is at an independent park, so that is something. It is at an independent park. So there is that. The one pirate one that just opened? No, I'm trying to remember what you're even referring to. What pirate one just opened? Oh, at Canopy? Or I don't know what new pirate ride, dark ride just opened, but no. It's not Pretzel. Not at Canopy. Not at Canopy Lake Park. So, yeah, this one, it's interesting because I think it's a known dark ride. The name is certainly known. I will say that. Yeah, I would say Northeast. Yes, it is at a Northeast park. Maybe narrowing down the state could be of help. That could possibly be helpful. But this is at a Northeast park. It is not Bisbee Spiral Airship. Imagine that with a dark ride segment. Just enclose the entire spiral lift. I mean, they're doing that with Zambezi Zinger. Not the dark ride, but just enclosing it. It is not Black Diamond, but you're on the right track. You are on the right track. I can give you that. Um, in terms of that guess. So it is not Black Diamond. We have established it is in the Northeast. Like I said, Black Diamond. You're on the right line of thinking. You don't know what else they got. Well, Charged on PC knows. Haunted Mansion. That is their ghost train, like haunted house type ride. Um, oh my god, I screwed you over because when you said pretzel, I did. If you meant that like the pretzel worked on it, they did. So my bad. I definitely screwed you over in terms of, but you still figured it out. I thought you were guessing like a ride or something, but yes, they were involved. So my bad. But um, yeah, Pretzel Company did the ride system. But yeah, Haunted Mansion at Knobles, which means Charged on PC is the winner of Guess the Dark Ride. So there we go. And you were thinking Wacky Shack and the one at Camden. Oh, Devil's Den. Yep, they did do that one. So there you go. There is a company called it's just called Pretzel Company. That's it. I had heard of them. It didn't come to mind when I was going through this process. So there we go. Alrighty, I think that'll wrap it up for that segment, and then we'll move on to my countdown of my top 10 dark rides. That's not the right layout we want. The top 10 dark rides. Why is the layout not doing what I want it to? There we go. Yeah, top 10 dark rides. We already counted down the other ones beforehand. If you didn't see it, you can check it out on replay. But these are going to be the top 10 dark rides I've ever ridden. Of course, there is a spoiler warning. Gonna go into spoilers here, so if you haven't ridden these, maybe you want to mute. If you care about spoilers, you maybe want to mute this while you're watching, or skip past it if you're watching on replay. But we'll just mention that. But these are going to be the top 10 dark rides I've ridden. Same criteria as was before, not including coasters. With that being said, we'll go into this as I unfortunately, living with the land just, fell a little bit short of this, so not quite going to make the top 10. But what is going to make the top 10 is going to be The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. So as I pull up the countdown here, yeah, this is an incredible attraction at Islands of Adventure. Fun and action-packed ride. It has great illusions, a brilliant mix of practical and digital elements. I mean, you have the characters like on screen basically bouncing off of physical objects. Probably best example is Spider-Man and that like ladder thingy that he bounces off of, or whatever the thing is. That's really cool. Along with a very fun storyline and a wacky bunch of villains and characters that you're following around. I also think, just on a minor note, the Daily Bugle queue, that's definitely a nice touch, so we'll mention that. But as I mentioned with Transformers, these kinds of ride vehicles, the platform-mounted or motion platform-mounted ride vehicles, are some of my favorite of any dark ride. You get thrown around a decent bit, and it's pretty thrilling. So that's great. And then this ride as well. So obviously, a lot of the action is happening on the screens, but you also have a lot of practical sets and effects, such as the fire, the Statue of Liberty stuff, the Stan Lee truck and cameo, along with the cityscapes, the like lair building for the villains as well. And also one of the other great illusions as well that I forgot to mention is when you're being lifted by Doc Ock's like sort of lifting mechanism thing. that he fires at you, and when you're going up the skyscrapers, basically, that's a brilliant illusion as well. Also, around 4 minutes long, which is pretty long and satisfying for the type of ride it is. So, um, and also got to mention the quips and puns from the characters. It feels like comic books pretty much brought to life. It's pretty brilliant in that way. Also, I'm more familiar with Spider-Man as the character and just his villains and such. So I think that also helps in why it ranks a decent bit higher than Transformers, which I talked about earlier. But absolutely incredible ride. Really hope this one is around for long term, as long as possible. Obviously, with the Universal Studios Japan one closing relatively recently, so hopefully it will stick around for a while longer. Just looking at the comments, yeah, Spider-Man is amazing. Definitely, I agree with that. Beyond the thrills. We walked through the queue directly on the ride, maybe without even stopping. Yeah, the days I went, the queue wasn't particularly full either, but you still got to walk through, so you got to feel for it. Uh, yeah, I would agree. I don't know anybody who likes Web Slingers better than Spider-Man and Islands Adventure. I think Web Slingers is like all right. It's fun enough for what it is. I obviously didn't make even top 25 though, so that just kind of tells you where it's at. Also, welcome to the stream, JB Thrills. Nice to see you. I don't really get motion sickness on screen rides. I've never really had that issue. The only rides that are like really problematic in giving me motion sickness are probably like just spinning flats. If I ride too many of them, or I have to be a little careful with that. But screen-based dark rides, I don't have that problem. So that is good. And then we're going to move on to our next ride, which is going to be the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, specifically the one at Disney's Hollywood Studios. I did ride the one at DCA beforehand. Wouldn't quite lump it in here just because it's missing the one, thing that makes this one special. Also, for anyone who just came in recently, have that massive spoiler warning for a reason, because I will go into spoilers. But very spooky and atmospheric drop tower, has an incredible pre-show, and I do remember that from the DCA version. But just the pre-show with the narration of what you're about to experience, the backstory behind the Hollywood Tower Hotel is incredible. Just with that, just vintage, basically style recording, it's like so cool. And then the pre-drop cycle element, just being able to go through that fifth dimension room, dark ride section, basically, where you're sliding through that room, and it becomes really trippy. It transforms into stars with like or beforehand you have the part where you have the ghosts, and then like kind of see the stars, and then you actually enter the room, and then it looks like a normal room at first, then it just becomes stars, and you have all those trippy visuals like the eye and the different things that were in the Twilight Zone intro, which is really, really cool. It's a great way to transition into the fifth dimension. Interior of the queue as well, forgot to mention that, but it also was great, so we'll give that a shout out. And then once you get into the actual ride, the drop sequence has a bunch of great drops. I mean, on its own, this is one of the absolute best drop towers on the planet. Removing the theming, but it's much better even with it. The lifts give great airtime as well, along with the drops, so that is certainly a strength of the ride, and definitely the ride feels decently chaotic. You get about, I timed it based on videos, about 40 seconds worth of a drop tower experience, which is quite good. A bit, definitely a decent bit less than, say, another ride we're going to be talking about in a little bit here, but still definitely very much good enough. And just the level of theming that this ride has, the exceptional atmosphere of the just Hollywood Tower Hotel, the queue, the pre-shows, the dark ride section, it really leads it to being one of the greatest drop towers ever made when you combine it with the actual drop tower sequence. So Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, It's going to come in at number 9, just looking at the comments here. At 9 is so valid. Tower of Terror has always been a top bucket list ride. Tower of Terror feels like it has no compromises, really. It's really cool. Just like being able to experience this specific version was a dream come true. I only did it a few times. I think I got 3 rides on it in total, I'd like to say. But it definitely was fantastic. And yeah, they better keep it safe. This one should not be converted. I'm okay with the DCA one being converted because it was not as good as this. But this one absolutely needs to stay for sure. And that brings us over to only one of 2 defunct attractions for the whole top 25. This is going to be Splash Mountain at Disneyland. I didn't ride the version at Magic Kingdom, and I actually haven't ridden Tiana's Bayou Adventure, so I'm not going to make comparisons here because I haven't ridden it. Obviously, I've seen some reviews for it and some discussions for that ride, but that's not really going to be influenced here in this ranking. But as for Splash Mountain itself, when it existed, it was a really charming but adventurous log flume with a memorable soundtrack. Honestly, one of the best soundtracks of any ride, just in terms of just how fun it was. A colorful group of characters. You got a ton of great scenes. Well-sequenced storyline as well that builds suspense toward the end. And this is my personal favorite log flume I've done. Like I said, haven't done Tiana's Bayou Adventure, so don't know how that would compare. And part of that has to do with the 3 drops being very good. With my favorite actually being the indoor drop with the hill. I think that's just the best drop on the ride. It's pretty crazy. But the final drop as well is spectacular with the near miss of kind of falling into the briar patch. And it's a really long ride too. It's like about 9-ish minutes, but it constantly moves without feeling slow or having dead space. Specifically the Disneyland version, there's just so much to see all the time, and/or it's throwing something at you. Specifically when you're indoors. Outdoors, I guess you'd kind of call that a little bit of a lull, but even then, outdoors still looked pretty good. And just favorite sections for me personally. I love the laughing place. Just going the drop transition into it, I think was great. And then that kind of tonal shift when Brer Rabbit is captured into the drop with the dramatic music. I think that's just a great way to build up to that final drop. That I've definitely always appreciated. And then of course you end out with the Zippity Doodah celebration, which is obviously super iconic, and I mean you're always bopping out to it basically at the end. So it's great in that way. I can understand why this ride was removed. It just in terms of the film it's based on being both problematic and not having been released in a while, and certainly not relevant nowadays. I understand it from that standpoint. But this on its own, this was an absolutely incredible attraction, and I certainly will miss it, but I'm definitely intrigued to see how Tiana's Bayou Adventure is, especially considering the Disneyland version was between the two the more well-received one, which hopefully I will be able to do first. So that's going to be Splash Mountain. You might have missed it, but did Timber Mountain Log Ride make the list? Yes, so it was in that first section, but I put it at number 12. It is my second favorite log flume I've done. I think it's very underrated in its own right, so I did talk about that earlier. Definitely a very good one. But Splash Mountain is my favorite of the log flumes I have done. Next, we'll move on to a soon-to-be defunct ride in Dinosaur at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Man, this ride, if you want to talk about an insanely intense, chaotic, just throws you around, just joyride of an attraction, this is it. This is, I mean, for one, I mean, just being able to the ride, most of the ride, it's very dark, and some people criticize it, but I think it adds to the chaos. And even with that, there's still a lot of cool dinosaurs you see. I mean, just dinosaurs in general, they're cool. So seeing the animatronics and running into them and trying to escape them is pretty cool. I also love the pre-show Doctor Seeker. Absolutely great character. Has some great lines and is really funny. Definitely can see why he's become super iconic. Also, Andre Carney in the chat. Hello. Um, but for Dinosaur, I think just the premise of the attraction of trying to retrieve the iguanodon before the meteor hits, just trying to avoid getting killed by the meteor. I think that's a fun premise. And then the ride vehicles and system. This is my favorite dark ride system, the enhanced motion vehicle. This is the best vehicle on any dark ride, I think, out there. There's another ride we'll talk about later on that'll also have this system, but this is my absolute favorite. It allows for some fast, rough, and thrilling movements that really throw you around. So that just, like I said, adds to the chaos, adds to the intensity. And then the finale. I love the finale. It doesn't quite measure up to the other one we'll talk about, but still having that dinosaur over you and you're dropping down is pretty incredible. So I do absolutely love that as well. So Dinosaur Animal Kingdom. I will certainly miss this one when it is gone. That being said, I definitely do have quite a bit of faith in the Indiana Jones retheme, especially because they're seemingly going with something unique. So I'm very curious to see how that will be once it reopens. I hope the intensity of the ride remains the same though, because it's pretty wild as is. Apparently, I guess it used to be even crazier back in its early years. I would have loved to ride it back then, and actually back then it wasn't even called Dinosaur. It was Countdown to Extinction, I believe. But still phenomenal as is. Looking through chat, let's see. Dinosaur is so good. You still think they should keep it? It's not really a part of Dinoland. It's tucked away a bit. Yeah, it's tough. It really hinges on how they handle how the Indiana Jones one is, because it's one of those things where it's like I'm more willing for like a great Disney dark ride to be replaced if another one's still out there. That's actually kind of another kind of underlying thing with Splash Mountain is you can still say that the Tokyo Disneyland version is still out there. I'm not entirely sure that that one's gonna be around forever per se, but at least for now, theoretically, you could still go out and experience that if you wanted to. But for Dinosaur, we don't have that option, so that's kind of what makes it so unfortunate about it closing. So I definitely there's a part of me that would love to see them keep it around, but I know it's not going to happen, unfortunately. So that's Dinosaur Animal Kingdom. Next, we'll move on to number 6. Alluded to this earlier. This is Guardians of the Galaxy, not Cosmic Rewind. This is Mission Breakout. Cosmic Rewind, also fantastic ride, but this is going to be the Drop Tower Disney California Adventure. This has a crazy party atmosphere and an insane drop sequence. Really incredible. I mean, this has the most chaotic drop tower experience of any drop tower I've ridden by far. It also lasts about like 90 seconds from start to finish. You kind of have some breaks to see like scenes take place, but still, that's incredible. It also has some great music. Connects Expert asks, "What's my favorite song?" Personally, for me, I like Free Ride. It's a song that I was familiar with when I was younger, and I think the drop cycle on it's really good. So that's personally my favorite one. But I've enjoyed all of the ones I've gotten. I've also even done the Halloween overlay called Monsters After Dark, which is fun. But going into the pre-boarding, you have a great interior queue of the attraction where you have the collector's weird displays. It's filled with like a bunch of Easter eggs. You even have the Yeti actually in the part after the pre-show, which is pretty cool. but you also have a lot of like Marvel Easter eggs and different assortment of creatures and things in the before the pre-show, which looks awesome, especially for something that got like repurposed. It looks really great, considering that the pre-show. I mean, that's really cool too. The Rocket Raccoon animatronic is incredible. That effect where he picks up the music player is still always a treat to see. So absolutely love that. Um, and this is a very re-rideable and addictive ride. I would say the reason I have this above Tower of Terror, even though I would say I enjoy more the kind of vibe and storyline and theme of Tower of Terror, is because this one has just that much crazier, I think, of a drop cycle. It's significantly longer, and it's just a very like fun, like I said, addictive kind of atmosphere. Where Tower of Terror is more like kind of spooky, I would say. And both are great in their own aspects, but I think that Guardians really is great for what it is. So it is absolutely spectacular in that way. So that is Mission Breakout. Looks very neat. Yeah, I can tell you it's a great time. Absolutely love this one. I've gotten probably out of these rides on here. I don't know how many rides I've gotten, but more than a handful, we'll say. So definitely very much enjoy this one. Next, we'll move on to my number 5. This is Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey at Islands of Adventure and Studios Hollywood. This is actually kind of a very special ride for me because when I went to Universal Studios Hollywood, I think it was 2017, I was really mostly just like a pure coaster enthusiast, didn't really care for like Disney parks, theming, dark rides, things of that sort. Mostly just in the thrill rides. But this, and just the Hogsmeade area in general, really was kind of what started getting me like more interested in experiencing these different dark rides and definitely giving me more of an interest in it. I'd still definitely say I'm more coaster enthusiast than like dark ride enthusiast, for example, but I definitely love both and have a great appreciation, hence the stream. So it's very special in that way. And this attraction, it's a wild journey really through the world of Harry Potter. It utilizes its Kuka arm system to pretty much, I think, a very high potential, I'll say. It also has the best facade or ride building exterior, in my opinion. I mean, you have the Hogwarts Castle. I mean, the ride takes place in the Hogwarts Castle. I mean, that's hard to do better than that in terms of just first impressions heading to it. I mean, that is a landmark in and of itself. And then the interior queue is pretty cool too. You get to go into the different rooms of the castle. You have some moving paintings, and you have that iconic talking hat at the end before you get on the vehicles. Those are some great highlights. This is also a ride that really mixes screens and physical sets well. It blends in like the screens. Obviously, it's like you have the Quidditch game and flying around like the different like iconic locations. But then when you're like when you see the dragon and go into the Forbidden Forest, and then deal with the Dementors. That's all physical, and I think it's really cool. And actually, it kind of adds a horror element, specifically with like the Dementors. So I really like that. I think that's a cool part of this ride, and it feels crazy how close it seems like some of those animatronics and the Dementors get to you. So I do really enjoy that. I've actually ridden it both when it was 3D and wasn't. I believe my first rides, it was in 3D, and then I rode it without it. I think I prefer it without, but that's just my take on it. But this ride, absolutely incredible. I'm very curious to see Ministry of Magic, how it will compare to this, as Beyond the Thrills mentions. You feel like that this has the potential to be even better than this. Uh, Similar ride system too. Yeah, definitely. Someone mentioned the Epic Universe Arc rides. I'm very curious in terms of how they're going to compare to what I've already ridden. Oh, and okay, that I didn't realize you were actually going to Universal Beijing next month. So, or at the end of next of this month actually. That's really cool. Hope you have a great time there. And I mean that'll be incredible to experience the Jurassic World attraction over there. So, best of luck with that. But next, I'll move on to number 4. This is Radiator Springs Racers at Disney California Adventure. Uh, so, as a kid, I was a big fan of the Pixar Cars film, the first one specifically. And I have been to this land multiple times. And first time I came in here in 2012, before I was even like really even a coaster enthusiast of any sort, it was like a dream come true. I mean, you were basically walking into Radiator Springs, and then this ride, you're racing around like the Ornament Valley area in the films, which is incredible, and you even get to see like all the characters and everything. This ride is, and you get to race too. It's like it's just if you're a fan of those films, or when you were younger, this is like dream come true ride in a dream come true area. And the rock formations look absolutely incredible. I also love this system as well. I haven't done Test Track, unfortunately, but it also has this slot car system, which is really nice for serving both as kind of a slower dark ride as you're kind of traversing the town and doing the shenanigans with Mater and the tractor tipping and escaping Frank, which I really like. Although that's you have a little bit of speed there, but like when you're soaring around the characters in Radiator Springs, I think it serves well in that, and it also gives you a thrilling high-speed experience as well. Um, so that's great. And then all the characters, they look fantastic, really as if they were plopped right from the film. I think they look incredible. Um, and then the race itself is super fun. Great sensation of speed. You also obviously have the racing and competition element, which makes it even better. I mean, ideally, if you can find a way to race with your buddy, which I've actually been able to do on a few occasions out of luck from like a single rider line. Um, then that's great too. Um, but you also some of the hills they have like a mild smidge of airtime too, so like that's kind of nice. I'm not saying it's anything incredible, but there's like a smidge of it. But it's really about like kind of whizzing around the rock work and the valley and the racing component that really makes that element stand out. So it's truly amazing. I'm so happy that they went through and did this. Another one where I'm curious how the Magic Kingdom version, when it eventually opens, of whatever their Cars ride looks like, how it's going to compare to this. Um, but this is absolutely an incredible one, for sure. And that brings us to our top 3. These are 3 of my all-time favorite rides. And we're going to start that with Star Wars Rise of the Resistance at Disneyland. I didn't ride it at Hollywood Studios because I was short on time, but you could apply that one here too. This is an incredible experience, one of the most immersive I've ever experienced. The queue is pretty good, definitely carries that like Star Wars aesthetic you're looking for. And I think the pre-show with the Rey hologram looks solid as well. But I think the experience, like it truly starts with that transport, which is really great. It really does feel like you are just transporting through space. And of course, that's also when you get captured as well for this one. So you have that. The Lieutenant Beck animatronic also looks incredible. So, I mean, that is already a great way to start off the experience in addition to some of the queue and pre-show stuff. And then once you actually get into the Star Destroyer hangar, that reveal, one of the greatest reveals of any theme park attraction ever. Just in terms of the scale of the room, you got the TIE fighter on the wall, you got like uh, you got space in the background, all the ships flying around, and all those stormtroopers. The scale of the room is insane. It is truly awe-inducing. Definitely one of the craziest moments I can think of, just in terms of finally seeing it in reality. And then in the interior of the ship in general looks incredible. Um, and then you of course have the Kylo Ren interrogation scene, which is good, and I like how they have the shadows on it to make it even more convincing. And then you get into the actual ride experience itself. It's really incredible. You know, you're trying to escape the Star Cruiser, and it really utilizes that trackless dark ride technology to an extremely high level. You feel like you're in the middle of the action. You do some different maneuvering as well that makes it pretty chaotic, especially like say in the cannon room. And the ride has an incredible blend, probably the best blend of like physical and digital effects working together. You can especially see that with like the blaster effects, where you see the shots and then you see the damage. That's just mind-meltingly incredible. Uh, Along with like the lightsaber being cut through, you have the cannons, as I mentioned, the Kylo Ren animatronic that tries to force suck you in pretty much. I mean, it is truly spectacular. And then also you have that escape pod drop scene as well, which is I did not know going in that was a thing. That I avoided spoilers on, or kind of. I had heard that there was that aspect of the ride, or like someone said that it had a drop track feature that I personally thought it was like they said it as a joke or something, so I didn't really take it with any seriousness. And like completely forgot about it. I just remember like someone mentioned that, but I thought they did it jokingly because I didn't really understand how a dark ride could have a drop track, but here we are. So that definitely adds to it. And just overall, it's absolutely incredible. I definitely agree with your take on with Connexpert's take on trackless dark rides. They definitely do feel extra magical. They just have an extra layer of just mind blowingness, I suppose. Um, it's pretty crazy. So I love how whenever there's a surprise, it's usually a drop track. It's pretty funny. So because I know there's some other rides out there that it's like people don't want it spoiled because it has a secret, and said secret is a drop track more often than not. So that I mean, I said spoilers, so I think I give proper warning. I have the banner I gave beforehand, so anyone who's watching, apologize if you did not want to get spoiled. But that was definitely a highlight moment of a ride. So and it caught me off guard. So but the ride overall, absolutely incredible. You can like just go on and on about it. As honestly I could with these three specific rides, which leads me to number two, which is actually going to be Indiana Jones Adventure at Disneyland. So, alluded to this one earlier as well. Same, I would say Dinosaur actually has like more intense movements and just being thrown around like crazy. But Indiana Jones still has that chaotic element, but I think the theming is just on a really grand scale and just in such an impressive scale that makes it, I think, a far superior ride to Dinosaur, which Dinosaur is already fantastic. So, really, the grand scale of the theming, the set pieces, the fact that a lot of it is physically based is really great. Has a few of my favorite all-time moments as well in the ride. But before you even ride, you have a really cool temple queue. It has a really neat exterior facade. You have artifacts. You got caves, spikes, and more. It's just really cool. So whether you're kind of walking through it quickly or you'd have to spend some time in it, there's at least definitely some stuff to look at. So you have that. And then this ride also definitely, while the physical sets I would say definitely, and the pieces definitely stand out, there are definitely some good projections in here. specifically at the beginning with the Eyes of Mara. The projections there look incredible, and then you have the uh, lightning sparks across the walls. I love that beginning of the attraction. But I have a few like favorite moments on this ride. The reveal of the grand room with that large, like basically head of Mara in that room with the lava basically and everything. That reveal is absolutely incredible. You just know you're in for something amazing as soon as you see that room, and especially if the music, how well timed it is there. Once you see it, it's just amazing. Um, and then I also love going across the shaky bridge. That's incredible. Love that part. Um, and then my other favorite ride moment of the ride is the boulder drop when it works, because I know for some people it doesn't always work. But you know that iconic boulder that Indiana Jones runs away from, being able to drop right before that hits, and it feels like sometimes it gets pretty close. Um, so it just is a great illusion, and that drop is just made even more thrilling. That is honestly for a non-coaster, that is my favorite drop on any attraction, just because of how kind of surreal that is. I mean, that moment is definitely one for the ages. But this attraction in general, it is absolutely worth the hype. I mean, I have it over Rise, which is probably a hot take. But anyone who tells you that this ride is elite, it's absolutely true. It is incredible. And I'm very happy to have this at here at Disneyland California. And then again, I'm curious. There's some differences with the Tokyo Disney Sea version. Very curious to see how that is just in comparison, even though there's a lot of similarities. But next, we'll move on to number one. This is kind of the weirdest one to include on here because this one is it. It's mostly not a dark ride, but it has dark ride sections. Hence, that's why it made this list. It's also probably amongst the weirdest ones to rank because it is like just so different from anything else. And honestly, if you're watching this and you have like you probably are like really wondering like what could I possibly have at number one? And if you don't know me, this will probably perplex you. If you've watched me for long enough, you'll know. You probably have a good idea. This is the studio tour at Universal Studios Hollywood. This is a one-of-a-kind attraction. It is the heart and soul of not only Universal Studios Hollywood, but really the Universal parks as a whole. This was the original, like, obviously in a different state. Obviously, it's very different, but back in the day. But this was like the original Universal Studios ride. It all got started here. And as a whole, this ride, it gives you a tour of real film sets that have been used for films and shows that also are sometimes still used. And then there's several fun sequences throughout. There's a really good, if you love movies and shows and like learning about really the sets and a bit of how they're made, and just obviously like literally seeing where stuff has been filmed. This is a great ride for that, and there's a lot of info given. The guides, along with the TVs, give information in terms of what has been filmed in specific areas when it's maybe not as obvious because certain sets have been used for tons of different pieces of media. So that's obviously quite great. It's like basically close to an hour long ride. Like it's ridiculously long. Like Charged on PC says that's a fair take. It's so long. Fast and Furious at number one. I mean, the funny thing is, even on my most recent ride, the supercharged portion was actually broken down, funnily enough. And my rides previously were before that was even there. So I actually never experienced supercharged at Hollywood. So just from that perspective. But I think you're just referring to like as a joke, Fast and Furious would be at number one. But yeah, this ride, you have several different elements as well that are fun. You have King Kong 3D, which is cool. I mean, it inspired a whole nother ride at Islands of Adventure, which on its own maybe is not the best, but as part of this massive tour, it's certainly fun. You also have the flash flood as well, which is really cool. The earthquake, the subway station. That honestly, that's probably my favorite one of the bunch. Honestly, with the truck that falls towards you and all the crazy stuff that's going on, it's insane. Um, and then you also have a few other things like a Jaws segment. And you go by the War of the Worlds plane crash set, which is unbelievable. That is probably the coolest set that you pass by, I would say. I also have not done it yet since they added the Nope set. So that's something that I would like to eventually do. I've heard that's really awesome. I haven't seen the film, but I've heard the set's great, so I'd love to check that out. And actually maybe see the film at some point too. Um, so that would be cool. But just because of how unique this is, how long of a ride this is, how much you get to see and learn with this one, um, this has to be my number one. I will say it's been a little while since I've ridden it, so maybe upon a reride I would kind of reevaluate it. But this has always been my favorite ride at Studios Hollywood, which is saying something because they have Forbidden Journey, along with several other great rides. But this has always been my favorite, and it is also my favorite dark ride on a technicality, because, like I said, mostly not a dark ride, but it has dark ride segments. So do with that as you will, um, for sure. So that is gonna wrap it up for our countdown. Hope you enjoyed the long countdown if you uh, went through it, and we'll go through our final Q&A and by ourselves. So any last questions you have, you can ask them now, and then we'll go from there. I'm not entirely sure when the next coaster time is, because last time I had a pretty good idea that this was going to be a stream I was doing. Um, the quiz I'm going to hold on to for now. I'm gonna probably use that for potentially another stream. Even though it's a dark ride quiz, I think I can probably find a way to fit it in. Um, just I would like to have more people for that one, I think. Because the quizzes take a decent amount of time for me to make. So, and we're already like, this stream actually lasted a decent bit anyways. So we're getting close to 3 hours, which is actually longer than I would have expected. But I guess going through the rides, that definitely added, and then the extra Q&A. So top 5 dark rides I have not ridden. Oh man, that's a good question. And we'll exclude Epic Universe stuff, because I think that's probably not fair to include right now. Let's see. So I would put the Jurassic Park, or not Jurassic Park, sorry, Jurassic World attraction at Universal Studios Beijing is definitely going to be up there. In terms of like guessing. Journey to the Center of the Earth seems really awesome, so I'm gonna include that as well. Um, the other ones after that, um, it's hard to do. I'll just like kind of look at like what is considered like Pirates of the Caribbean at Shanghai Disneyland. How could I forget that? That looks incredible. Yeah, that seems like one of the absolute best. Um, so you have those three are definitely for sure got to be up there. Um, let's see what else. I've heard really good things about Mystic Manor, and that is a trackless dark ride. So that 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 definitely could be up there. Um, and after that, it's probably that it kind of gets tricky from there because there's some other like Symbolica looks awesome. I mean, well, hey, Indiana Jones at Tokyo Disney Sea, since it's slightly different, you could if I wanted to do that, but it's pretty similar to ours. So I think that's probably cheating a little bit. You say Frozen looks insane too. I haven't even done the one at Epcot, much less, of course, like the ones at the international Disney parks. So uh, that might be a good shout. Oh, Valhalla at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I mean, that just gets a ton of votes as like the best like boat ride. So you could probably throw that one in there. I think that's honestly a lot of the like really really big ones I'm missing. Um, as far as like there's a ton of great dark rides out there too. So it's not so I mean, and there's definitely a lot out there that I'm not mentioning. I mean, Efteling and Europa Park have a million dark rides. Pirates in Batavia looks great in its own right. Don't know that it would make sense for the list, but yeah, there's a lot of good ones out there for sure. And oh, I guess test track if you want to throw it out. I haven't done test track if you want to consider that. So that I've heard is a pretty good one. Oh, we talked about the Monsters Inc. ride, Pooh's Honey Hunt, as well. There's a lot actually. Now that I'm just thinking about it, so yeah, definitely a lot out there. And then Epic Universe is gonna add even more, so that's obviously awesome to see. And then DCA as well. Will once they get their Avatar land, we'll have like a Avatar equivalent to Pirates in Shanghai. Let's see. You wrote it as Maelstrom. I wish I could have done Maelstrom. That actually seemed really cool. I'm sure I'll like Frozen Ever After, but I would have I really would have liked to do Maelstrom. I'm kind of disappointed I couldn't quite fit in Frozen Ever After because like it feels like the more and more I tell people I didn't write it, people are like, oh yeah, it's actually really good. It's like maybe I should have made more of an effort to write it, but you know, when you have only so much time at the Disney World Resort, you kind of have to make some tough choices. So you do have that. Uh, so yeah, Maelstrom was very dark. You'll say that it was cool though, not that good, but it it still looked pretty cool. So I'll give it that. Let's see. Any other questions? Any other buy or sales? They can all sells. They can also do with things that are not dark ride related as well. I know that was the focus of this stream, but um, oh, Frozen. I mean, people told me it was pretty good, so still mad about no Living with the Land. Hey, Living with the Land is like it's pretty solid. It's a meme attraction just because. I mean, you're just going through a greenhouse and seeing plants. There is that beginning segment that actually is like legitimately like out like actually has like some pretty good theming to it as well. Um, but Living with Land is pretty good. I actually did it with the Christmas lights, funnily enough, so that's like my one experience on it. You skipped Living with the Land and Dinosaur. Man, skipping Dinosaur is tough. I hope you get to go back there before it ends up going. Oh, we didn't even talk about Remy's Ratatouille adventure. That's actually fair that you didn't do it. Thank goodness the single rider line just magically opened for the first time ever the day I was there, and like very few people knew about it because I was able to get on that thing in like 10 minutes, and even then I felt cheated because man, it's just like good quality dark ride, but I mean, man, it just in comparison to the other trackless dark rides that Disney has done recently, it does not compare. And also, I think it's also I was really hyped up, um, and I hyped myself up. I think for it before it opened because you know it's themed to Ratatouille, which is my Potentially my favorite animated film and my favorite Pixar film I've seen. So the fact that the ride was wasn't really all that amazing was definitely not great. So I was not the biggest fan of that one. Um, Dinosaur, there are some people who don't like it, to be fair. There's, like I said, a lot of the ride takes place in darkness, so I kind of understand it if you kind of feel it's kind of lazy in that way. I think just with the chaoticness in with the ride, it works in its favor, but there are things you could poke holes in with Dinosaur, so if you wanted to criticize it. You did the Soarin' ride in New York City Times Square and you thought it was better than Soarin'. Well, that's certainly high praise. I guess I'll keep that in consideration if I'm in the area. Not looking to go to New York City. I actually have never been there. Of course, would eventually love to get there at some point. But no, even like uh, speculative plans to go there anytime super soon. But definitely on the bucket list at some point. Alrighty, so it is. I'll probably keep the stream up for another 5 minutes because that'll at that point it'll be 9 p.m. PST, 12 p.m. Eastern. So we'll have hit not quite 3 hours because I started the stream a smidge late, but that'll probably just wrap it up there. Like I said, just going over channel stuff. I'm not sure when the next stream is gonna be. I will have to sort that out. But didn't mention this earlier, but I started. You may have noticed if you follow on Instagram and YouTube that I finally uploaded a random RCDB coaster short for the first time in a while. Hoping to get back into those. Actually have like the other ones, like the audio recorded. It's just like a matter of editing them. So hopefully gonna be producing more shorts. I can't guarantee it being super regularly just because, going to college, probably looking on the job search right now, potentially to see if I can get some work before I go back to a job that I already have for the summer, before the semester ends. But we'll kind of, but hopefully I'll be able to still produce some more shorts here and there. And then streams, I plan to keep on going. Hopefully I can do some more guest streams as well. That would be ideal. Obviously we had Coaster Dash on the last stream and that was great. So that was ideal. And I appreciate the support in terms of I love getting other YouTubers on here as well. So and I know obviously you watching do as well, and then my guests as well enjoy it. So I know that I've gotten several guests who have come on either once before or multiple times before who have told me they'd love to come back on at some point. So definitely, I would say definitely you can expect a decent amount of returning guests when I do future streams, whenever they may be. So that definitely would be in the pipeline. Yeah, I know that like coaster podcasters like pretty tough. And yeah, I'm honestly I'm not sure. I think like Dashcast is not really sure what happened in terms of that, but I'm sure whatever comes next. I mean, Mark's always creating great content for Coaster Dash. He's got Travel Dash as well. So regardless of what he decides to do, he's still going to be making great or content. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of I've been seeing the coaster podcast space for a while, and there's definitely a lot that have kind of started and stopped and come and gone. It is kind of how it is. And heck, I mean, I've had guests on who are from podcasts that it's a commitment, that are no longer around. And, especially when you have like a co-host, which I mean, I guess for me, I mean, I have a guest who kind of in a way basically is like a second co-host, sort of. Um, but it's definitely a commitment when you have to align your schedule with, especially if you're also bringing guests on, but even just like a regular co-host, it's hard. That and sometimes the prep for those podcasts, depending on what you're doing, you might have to do a decent bit of prep, which is I can understand why it can't be continued forever. I mean, heck, I think it's an accomplishment, even as irregularly as these streams have been. That I mean, we've been doing this for um, uh, shoot, I think we started in 2020, so 4.5 years, about to be 5 years. I think that's pretty incredible here. So yeah, you need podcasts to listen to when building your Connects roller coasters. Yeah, that would be a good reason to do it. And you actually started watching me with the first Coaster Dash episode, so yeah, that was what was it? Man, I had it. I remembered it. I mentioned it exactly like when we did. I think it was in 2021. It's like crazy. Um, that's so mid. I love that's so mid's content. His shorts are great. I thought the series where he did the random wheel, um, going to all the parks was like really crazy. Like I would definitely never do that. It's just insane. But that's what makes it like fun content. So I love that. But my favorite series definitely has to be the GeoGuessr series. It's so fun. It's just so fun to see how different content creators that like I've seen and watched, and even ones that I haven't and that I'm just first introduced to, whenever the episodes go up, how they do. Because some of them, it's like they like get like pretty close to where they figure out the place that they're in when like I wouldn't, like when they're like in these really obscure places, like just based on like looking at like language and how the streets are. Like some of it I could probably at least figure out a little bit, but some people have gotten like some crazy gets as far as the games go. And it's also funny too when you absolutely know what the park is that they're looking for and they have like no idea, or they don't know what country it's in. It's like, oh my god, like it's this park here. I know exactly where it is, and it's kind of painful but kind of funny. Um, so and some people I know that people did mention that submit a decent bit when I did like the thing on Instagram asking for content creators. So I might have to reach out and see um, if uh, if he'd be interested in coming on, because I think he'd be a fun guest. I haven't had a guest from Australia either yet, so that'd be fun. Would probably be crazy with the time difference in terms of getting that scheduled, but I mean, hey, he has a bunch of guests on his thing as well, so it might be able to work. Um, but yeah, guess I went over the time, but uh, just I guess some of the topics that are being brought up, I have a decent bit to say. Yeah, some people are better at it than others. I'd love to be able to participate. I wanted to give it a good go. Yeah, Coaster Dash, like you knew he was gonna be really good at it. I mean, those who have traveled a lot are gonna have a huge advantage, especially like internationally from wherever they're from, because sometimes he gets people from different countries and continents. That's certainly helpful. So it is. I'd love to give it a go though. So that is something that would be fun. Funny how my most viewed video is predictions for 2020 when no parks were. Yeah, a horrifically aged video in so many ways. Like I actually don't like that. That's my most viewed video, because looking back, I don't think it's very good in a lot of aspects. But oh well, it is what it is. Uh, people enjoyed it then, so I mean, I'm happy that people enjoyed it. So I guess I can say that. It could probably work at this time. Hey, you never know. It actually might. So yeah, I'd love to get him on at some point. So And you also started with Coaster Dash, also. So there you go. I'm guessing. I don't recall you being in the a lot of the previous streams, so I'm assuming probably the most recent one, right? For Coaster Dash, an expert in terms of watching. I'm guessing. But yeah, I mean, it's always cool sometimes too. Like the other cool thing is when you bring on guests, is like sometimes some of their viewers come in to watch your thing maybe just for that yes episode, and that's totally fair. Like I get that. If they're more interested in that just because of how long these are. But it's cool when those people who came from a different channel stick around for a while. So love seeing that in general. With that being said, I think I will wrap it up here. Thanks to those of you who've been watching throughout the stream. It was a pretty long one, but the last live stream. Okay, got it. All right, cool. All right, good to know. So yeah, appreciate you tuning in again. But as I said, that'll pretty much wrap up the stream. Thanks to all of you for watching, both live and on replay. And I will see you all next time here on Coaster Hour. See you all.